Is up, everyone, and welcome back to the Triple H podcast. Have a loaded show today, all basketball time. We're in it, guys. Today the play-in starts. Therefore, the playoffs start. We're going to be going over the West play-in that start tonight, Eastern Conference play-in tomorrow, Team USA roster, who got left off, who should be there. Um, and a little WNBA as well. And then we'll just go through the whole entire playoffs and talk all basketball. Like I mentioned, fellas, I wasn't here last week. You guys held it down. I'm now back. How we doing, guys?
Oh, we couldn't be doing better. We couldn't be doing better. Playoff basketball's starting. And Donnie, like I said, I know you weren't here last week. We saw the awards you picked, and I gotta say, we're great minds think alike, Donnie. Great minds think alike. I'm excited. I'm really excited for some playoff basketball. And I know there were mixed opinions about the play-in, right, when it first was announced. But I don't know how you cannot be excited for the play-in this year with some of the potential matchups we have. And for the first time, I think since the play-in was installed, the 1 and 2 seeds are not really getting rewarded with who could come out of both the Eastern and the Western Conference plan. So I'm excited to just sit down, lock in, watch some playoff basketball. I mean, we got Lakers, Pelicans, and then what I'm more excited about, I know it's the later game, but Kings, Warriors. You know what that means? That's Steph Curry in an elimination game, bro. You telling me you're not going to be locked in for Steph in a win or go home situation? Come on now. Oh, JBC calling me a fraud. You know what, JBC? Maybe I will change my Eastern Conference play-in. Maybe I will change who I got winning the 9-10. Maybe I will.
So, yeah, with all that said, obviously you guys know that the Happy Hour Hoops podcast is brought to you guys by Win Streaks. Once again, thank you to our sponsor, Win Streaks. It's simple, guys. You pick teams to win games, accumulate points, and then you win cash prizes. You can make up to 5 picks a day on any sport you want. NBA, obviously, in full force here. NFL when it comes back. NHL just heading into the playoffs. College basketball just ended, but as soon as that comes back, the NFL, MLB is in full swing, pun intended. 100 players win cash prizes every week up to $2,000. Contest runs every week from Monday to Sunday. And once again, there is never, ever any deposits, 100% free to play. Don't forget to use our code HHH when you sign up and start winning your cash prizes. Now, fellas, are we starting with Team USA here?
Yeah, let's start with Team USA.
Taking a look at this roster. Okay, so 11 of the 12 names on this roster were announced yesterday, and we kind of knew, we kind of were hearing as players, kind of put their names into the circle and said, I'm down to play for Team USA. Obviously, the upper echelon guys are able to do that, and then are kind of just selected by Team USA. But we have LeBron James, Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, Joel Embiid, Jason Tatum, Devin Booker, Drew Holiday, Anthony Davis, Anthony Edwards, Bam Adebayo, and Tyrese Halliburton. So I guess we can go through who we think should get that last spot. But what do you guys think of the initial group? Obviously, a lot of the usual suspects. I think a few of the bigger surprises would probably be, for me, Drew Holiday and Tyrese Halliburton, not just because they aren't good players, but, Drew's a little older and has never been like a flashy Team USA guy per se. I would say he's not, one of the best in the league as far as like top 10 goes. And then, defensive minded guys who are just like great glue guys and don't usually get this kind of nod or aren't selected for teams like this. And then Halliburton, I think just the youth, like obviously the talent makes sense, but hasn't been around very long, and he got the nod as well. What do you guys think of the roster?
I don't think Team USA is messing around anymore with the first 11 names that they announced. I mean, this is awesome. I think obviously for us, especially anyone within our age range, because we watched the entire careers of Steph Curry, LeBron James, and Kevin Durant. To see them on Team USA roster again together is awesome. I like that they gave Tyrese Halliburton and also Anthony Edwards kind of the, next guys, right? The youth kind of bump. We've seen them prove themselves before in this situation. So I like that they were on the team. And then kind of the only other one that kind of stood out to me is I think there's a lot of big names that could really be in, I guess, competing for the final spot. Kawhi Leonard, I think, would be the favorite. I know Kyrie Irving's another name that I was talking about too, who has really talked about how badly he wants to play for Team USA. But a lot of big names that I think are fighting for the final spot. Like you said, Dunny, I think Drew Holiday, kind of a surprise, just because, he's at this point in his career where he's more of like a defensive-minded guard. He'll shoot the corner three, but he's not really someone you think of as someone that's going to take over a game. But I like that he got the nod because, I look at this team. I think that's a perfect defensive guard that this team kind of needs. Steph Curry, not the best defender, right? Devin Booker, not a great defender at the guard position. Tyrese Halliburton, he's okay. But to have a guard like that kind of solidifies the backcourt for the guards.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love having Holiday on this roster. I think that exactly what you said. It's a defensive option. This team, it really can. The way it's built right now, they can play a lot of different ways, and they actually have some size. Which, I mean, having Embiid around helps with that. Like, it's a huge difference. But I feel like that's where the last couple of years of Team USA, they've gone downhill as they've gotten kind of beaten up in the post in some of these matchups, beaten up on the boards, and it's not going to happen with AD, with Bam, with Embiid. At least you would imagine so. I would imagine those first five guys named as the starting lineup, and that wasn't an accident when it goes to LeBron, Curry, Durant, Tatum, and Embiid, and that's kind of short on guards. But when you have Tatum and Durant with the shooting, I mean, even LeBron, like, who is like 40% from three this year, like the shooting that they have around Embiid, you don't really need another second guard, and that kind of allows you to hide Curry a little bit defensively. Tatum will have a big role there, but that's why you bring in a guy like Drew. And having AD around there too. They have some guys that are going to be defensive specialists on this team, like Bam especially. I think Halliburton gets the nod over Brunson because of the size too. Like, as much as anything else, like Halliburton, not the greatest defender, but that length is going to come in handy against some of these international teams, especially when you look like the number one team they're going to look at is France. That they're matching up with. That's a big team. That's a big team, and that's the U.S. is planning for that. That's a team they've had trouble with over the last couple of years. So I'm excited to see this roster. That last spot is interesting because you guys are mentioning some Kawhis and Paul Georges of the world and everything else. Jalen Brunson I just mentioned. What if they go with a younger guy like Chet Holmgren or Banchero, even, or something like that as an option, where it's they've done the college guys in the past couple years, but in the past, and that's kind of the nod to that. And having a guy like Chet, I feel like, or even Paolo, adds more to that size in case you have a guy like AD or Embiid who get banged up a lot. In case those guys get banged up, you kind of want some insurance that's not just Bam, who, while Bam plays big, he's not a big guy. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, I mean, I could see it. I think Banchero would be kind of a nice nod just for everything he's kind of done. And somehow he still just seems to be overlooked for how good he's been to start his career, right? He won the Rookie of the Year, and an absolute dominant rookie season that people just kind of glance over. Carries this Orlando Magic team that people didn't even think was probably going to have 35 wins to a playoff spot. And you're talking about how they gave Anthony Edwards and Tyrese Halliburton, some of those younger guys that are going to probably be staples in this team going forward. I think Banchero fits right in that category with Anthony Edwards and Tyrese Halliburton, despite being, a year behind them. I don't see why he can't fit right in that category.
What about Bronny?
Bronny James. Now that would be kind of sick. That's how Bronny plays with LeBron on Team USA.
Go win yourself a gold medal, Bronny.
Yeah.
I don't know what would make guys more mad, if the nepotism happened on Team USA or if
in the NBA.
Yeah, if LeBron makes it happen otherwise. I don't know who I think is, the most deserving of this final roster spot, but I definitely don't hate the Paulo move there. For some reason, like young bigs were coming to mind. Like Jalen Duran was someone who first came to my mind for the same reason you guys thought. Like, I feel like all our older bigs who, would be perfect for this group. We already have them in the lineup, and I can't really think of, Chet, like you guys mentioned, would be another great name.
Right.
Yeah.
I think, there's plenty deserving here. I know there's a lot of discourse today that I saw on there's a lot of discourse that I saw today about Kyrie. I think
they're just not picking a small guy like that. Like, I feel like that's what Brunson got too. Like, have Steph out, like, they need size. This is a big ass team, bro. Like, besides Steph, Booker is what, 6'4", 6'5"?
6'5", I think. Yeah.
I think, and Drew's 6'4". Like, there's nobody. They took a concerted effort to not get bullied with this.
Steph's kind of the exception. He can do some stuff. Despite his size.
He's all right. But if you don't have Steph, then you take Kyrie, right? Like that. Then Kyrie comes into the fold. I feel like it's kind of redundant to have them together on this roster the way it's set up.
That's kind of why I'm a little surprised Kawhi was left off the roster initially. I feel like Kawhi, to me, if I'm making a Team USA, he's a no-brainer. I'm putting him on the team. So that would probably be my pick for the 12th spot right now. I agree, like maybe size and youth, and I think Banchero would be a good fit. But I just I can't picture a Team USA without Kawhi Leonard. That just doesn't seem right.
It would be weird.
Not to try to put 3 Celtics on this list, but does Jaylen Brown get a look here?
I mean, you know how I feel about Jaylen Brown, Donnie.
Yeah.
I had him on the second team, so I put him on Team USA.
Same kind of feel to like having a Kawhi, a PG, or even a Paulo. Yeah. Like obviously Paulo plays a little different than JB, but playing both sides of the ball. Obviously they're going a little more defensive minded here, and then just the offensive season he's had to close here is something to look at. He also does a lot of shit outside of the NBA, so maybe that was a personal decision.
That's what I was wondering too, and that's why I'm wondering with Kawhi, if Kawhi's already like turned it down, like there's no way he's putting those extra miles on this time around or something like that. But
I know, because that's what's interesting. Obviously, we see the guys like Jaren Jackson who we're talking about, like putting his name out there and saying, "Hey, if I get a call, I'll take it." But we don't. I guess we don't know about the guys who, just turn it down initially if that does happen.
Yeah, but, it's interesting. I mean, glaring omission. I mean, he wasn't going to make this team, I guess, due to outside circumstances. But Ja Morant really should be on this roster too.
Yeah. Too.
And it's crazy that Ja Morant is not on this team. I think Zion's an option potentially too for that last spot.
That'd be interesting for sure.
Yeah, Ja probably takes Tyrese Halliburton's spot if.
He should, but it's just they were never going to reward him for the last couple of years. So it is what it is.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens with the USA roster there. Obviously, this is going to be a damn fun team to watch, regardless who takes that last spot.
Yes,
that's for sure. Crazy talent, top to bottom. It's honestly, I don't even want to say this out loud, but probably the last time we see a large group of these guys play together in a circumstance like this with, LeBron, Curry, Durant, Embiid, Davis, like all those guys in this group. This could be the last hurrah for them playing for their country. So pretty cool stuff. Going to be interesting to see how it unfolds, who gets that last spot. And then I'm sure we'll have much more discourse. I did see Dylan Brooks made some comments about how that, they're still going to have to play Team Canada. So, we talk about France with the size. We gotta.
Team Canada is looking pretty good too. So
we got a good team.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sucks that that guy Wemby isn't from the States, huh?
Yeah, right.
He'd be a nice 12th spot on this group. But dealing with him in Gobert in France should be fun.
Yeah, that's gonna be scary, man.
So are we going play in, or do you guys want to do a little WNBA?
I know Jake wants to talk a little WNBA because his team made a couple splashes.
Well, there was a couple splashes. The number, it was no surprise that Caitlin Clark was going number one.
Obvious.
But did you see the TV ratings that came in before we go into any of this?
I did not see the ratings of the draft.
Last night's draft, 2.4 million people watched. The highest watch since ever.
Yeah, I was
And
gonna
the
say.
most it had been was 2004. The Tarasi draft had 600,000 people watching it.
Yeah, just shattered
Wow.
it.
I mean, it's just destroyed it. So Caitlin Clark, I mean, 36 of 40 national TV games already for the Fever before she even got drafted.
Incredible.
She is. They're building this off of her right now, and this draft showed the attention that it can get. But a lot of stars in this draft: Cameron Brink and Ricky Jackson going to LA, and then My Sky getting Cardoso. And after 2 weeks after they get into some scraps, man, they're together in one of the most formidable power forward center pairings already in the WNBA now. It was just fun to see the star power last night. And yes, I'm very excited for the Sky's outlook going forward. Now it's basically a quick rebuild after last year, and that's how you rebuild, is in the trenches. And that team's going to be tough to score on, tough to get rebounds against the whole time. But Caitlin Clark, she's finally arrived. Tickets are like every single arena that she's in. Tickets are crazy right now.
Her jersey sold out in every size.
Sold out every
5 minutes after getting drafted. It's crazy. The impact she's having on the league, man. It's so good for the WNBA. It's so good to have that type of star power. Now, all we need, and this kind of goes along with the NBA too, is just, the retired players to stop discrediting her. They're so actually welcome her into the league and be like, wow, this is a generational type talent. We should be hyping her up, promoting her, because this helps our league, instead of just trying to discredit her.
What is that? It's got to just be like, you got to be jealousy. Yeah,
it's 100% jealousy. Yeah, because no one talked about them to this degree, right? Like they were great stars in their own way, right, when they played, but they never got this type of media attention, this type of hype, like Caitlin Clark has. And like, what I don't understand is, like, she's building your league, she's building your sport. Why wouldn't you try to help her out?
Yeah,
it's a great point.
But
maybe that's what ESPN told him. Like, listen, Clark needs some ops. You see Perk, he's out there just going after people all the time. That's what you need.
But also, too, speaking of Caitlin Clark in Iowa, got to shout out my Las Vegas Aces. Got to shout out my Las Vegas Aces, getting Kate Martin, the other girl from Iowa. She was there to just support Caitlin Clark with a couple of the other teammates. I think Gabby Marshall and Hannah Stolke were there to just, watch Caitlin get drafted, support her. So Kate wasn't even like there with the rest of the girls who were there to get drafted, and then gets her name called at 18th overall. I think that's awesome. Las Vegas Aces, they just keep taking W's, and now you got a girl in Kate Martin who I think will make the team, and I don't think she'll have a huge scoring impact, but she's someone who can come off the bench, kind of like Alicia Clark, play some defense. She will shoot an open shot, and she's got decent inside game. So very happy about that. But yeah, Jake, I gotta say, for being in Chicago for your team, man, couple nice picks. Chicago's gonna be scary.
I'm very excited, and they made the trade up to 7 on Sunday. You knew who they were targeting. Like, it was, and I was hoping this whole time that was around the area where Angel was gonna fall to, but the city's gonna fall in love with these two very quickly.
Yeah,
it's a basketball city, and I'm very excited to see how this summer plays out and how quick this team can be like decent. Like, they have not a lot of pieces. They got rid of almost everybody, but they still have some good guard play. And having these, it's going to be so hard to score on these two. Like, that's really all I can think about is, like, just good luck trying to score on these two in the paint. Cardoso's 6'7", man.
Oh yeah, she's a beast.
That's crazy.
They should dominate rebounds almost every single game they play.
But we didn't talk about Brink and Jackson. That's a scary duo in LA right away too. And I thought Jackson might have gone. I was honestly thinking Jackson was going to go 3 to Chicago. I guess they didn't want to pass up just taking up the size. But
you got to take Cardoso there, I think. Cameron Brink is going to be disgusting. She's 6'4" too. She's got.
I was going to say she has some size.
She has a little more touch than Reese and Cardoso too. And
like Brianna Stewart a little bit. Maybe not as good as Stewie, obviously, right now, but I think Cameron Brink has potential to get to how Stewie is. I
could see that.
She's got size. She can shoot a little bit. She's got a lot more, like you said, touch when it comes than most like WNBA players her size.
And I think go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say what's crazy is this WNBA draft is going to be considered like the 96 or like the 03 draft for the NBA, because I mean, we're just talking about the talent. I feel like even just this year, like no one we barely have like this many names that everyone like can put like a face to the name,
Yeah,
and like
100%.
they all kind of have like their own unique skills and are all just like very, very good. And it's also the group that's coming in and is putting the sport on the map. Like they had this huge popularity, a lot of them in the college game, now bringing it to the WNBA. We talked about how, you know, Caitlin Clark is most of it. She's getting shit from some of her peers and the people she's going to play alongside. I think ultimately it's good, and we're going to look back and be like, holy shit, that draft really changed the sport, the organization. I mean, everything forever. We're already talking. I'm already seeing on the timeline today, you know, WNBA commissioner talking about expansion cities and how like Philly, Toronto, Denver, Nashville, like they're looking to expand. And if they get to that point, this draft will be a big part of that for sure.
For sure.
People are caring, right? And you need a star who's got generational talent, but also has that personality to help grow the game. And that's exactly what Caitlin Clark has. And now, like we said, Dunny, you know, that's when you talk about, you know, previous draft classes, you had that star with LeBron, but you also had other stars in that draft class with their own personalities. And that's exactly what this WNBA draft class has. Like Cameron Brink, Angel Reese, Cardoso, they have personalities and they have star power. So it's just great for the game to grow it. And let's just hope, you know, the talking heads just finally come to that realization.
Yeah.
And the most exciting thing basketball wise about Caitlin Clark here is she's playing with her best teammate ever, with Aaliyah Boston too. Like there's all a bunch of great duos out of this where people can like immediately see these people together and like have that, you know, have it on top of mind as we come into the season next month, where there's just a lot of exciting, like you were saying, a lot of exciting stars in this league, not just from this draft, but from past year's draft that are going to get more attention on them and be able to see what they do too. Like the league's in a great spot. Don't you talk about expansion? Like I know that there's the Golden State teams coming. They were talking about 16 teams. It's all good stuff. It's going to be it's going to be a fun summer and a fun season.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Aces are going to win 3 straight, but it'll be fun.
Still the super team.
They're so good, man. They had a great draft, too. They had such a good draft.
All right. That'll Jake, I didn't even realize too. You fitting. You always
I'm locked in.
Yeah, you got the WNBA hoodie on and everything.
He's got the finals hat. Dude, he's so ready. He couldn't be more locked in.
It should be good though, man. Like this WNBA season, hopefully, you know, this draft can do the right thing for the organization. And it would be, I know Steve is predicting the Aces winning a 3rd straight, but how fucking crazy would that be if Caitlin Clark comes in and wins a title in her first year after not being able to get it done in college?
That would be wild. It'd be hard not to root for. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
As much as I want the Aces to get 3-peat and want to root for the Aces, if I saw like Clark, Indiana starting to have that run, it would be very hard not to just jump on board with that.
And then, you know, the older women that are just verbally abusing Caitlin Clark right now would explode if that were to happen.
Oh, yeah.
So it's good, man. It's good that the sport already has controversy coming in, and none of these women have even played a single game in the WNBA yet, and they have haters and they have fans alike. And that's everything you need for, you know, some of the best sports in the world. So hopefully we have a cool WNBA season after this. And yeah, let's get into the games that are happening tonight, fellas. The play-in tournament. We have the East and West set. We will just start with tonight, the Western Conference. Pelicans versus Lakers to start it off. What do you guys, just surface level, what do you guys think of this game? I mean, it's kind of crazy that the Pelicans fell here, right? Because obviously you guys had held down the pod last week, but when I was on last, the Pelicans looked like they were a firm 5 seed, or I think 6 seed, and that was when Mavs, Clippers, and Pels were all like a game or two apart. And I was like, wow, the way the Pelicans are playing right now, they could, you know, maybe get the 5 or 4 seed here. They fall to 7, have the you know, whatever way you want to look at it, it could be good, you know, if you're some Pelicans fans, but it's also at the same time the scariest thing ever that you have to play the Lakers in a win or go home. And
Right.
I don't know, you could say the Pels match up pretty good with this Lakers roster. You could probably say the same thing if you're a Lakers fan. I think it's interesting. LeBron versus Zion should be cool. It's hard to see LeBron going out this way. And obviously, they'd have to lose another game, but it's hard to even imagine LeBron losing tonight. So what do you guys think about this?
Yeah, well, big thing for the Pelicans, because this is what we kind of keep an eye on towards the end of the year. Brandon Ingram's back, and he shouldn't have a minute restriction, is what they're saying, for the game tonight, which is huge for the Pelicans because you have a fully healthy Pelicans team. And we've talked about this Pelicans team for a couple of years, right? When they're fully healthy, they're about as deep as anyone. And their role players have stepped up great. Trey Murphy, Herb Jones have been playing fantastic basketball. Zion has really kind of looked like old Zion. CJ McCollum's been playing out of his mind lately. Now you get Ingram back. So it'll be interesting. Plus you're playing, obviously a Lakers team that beat you the last game of the regular season that kind of got you in this playing situation. With the Lakers, the big thing for me has been the same thing for the Lakers for 3 years, Anthony Davis's health. I mean, I feel like, I'm a broken record at this point, but it feels like every big game, it's always like, oh, Anthony Davis game time decision, or he's questionable, or we don't know. And we've seen many times this year, right, where Anthony Davis just won't finish a game. He'll get hurt in the middle of it. And this has been one of his healthier seasons. So Anthony Davis's health is a big, big question mark for me. To be honest with you guys, as just wanting kind of the best winner go home type situation. I want the Lakers to lose because I want LeBron versus Steph for the 8th seed. I really, really want that. I think that would be appointment television. So I'm pulling for the Pels in this game because I do want to see Lakers against the Warriors. Winner gets the 8th seed, losers out, because I think that would be incredible ratings, incredible for the sport, but also would be incredible game to watch. But either way here, I kind of lean the Pels regardless, just because, like I said, they're fully healthy now, where the Lakers are an older team. A couple guys are more banged up coming into this. I think they're all going to play, but they're still, a little banged up, where on the Pelicans side, they're starting to get healthy and they're starting to play pretty good basketball. I know they lost the final game to the Lakers, but I lean the Pelicans here. It's not like a super confident pick, and I think it's probably like a pick-em game right now. I think it's a 1 or 2 point spread. But Brandon Ingram not having a minutes restriction, and the way that kind of the role players, I don't want to call them role players because they play better than role players, but you know what I mean. The second and third options on offense have stepped up for the Pelicans. They're scary, man. They're scary. And a 7 seed Pelicans, I'll tell you what, like, that's a team that I think would give the Nuggets a series. I really do. I don't know if they'd win it, but I think that's the type of team that would play with Denver because they have the depth and because they have the athleticism at every single position.
I think having a guy like Valanciunas matters too when you're going up against Jokic. It's just, honestly, obviously no one's stopping him. Obviously Valanciunas isn't fast enough to, actually stay with him, but just the sheer size and just, even if it's slowing down or, battering Jokic a couple times throughout the game and just letting him feel you there, then you also have to deal with guys like Zion and Ingram who have the talent. They have all the defensive talent on the wings too. I mean, you talk about a guy like Herb Jones, who this is the first team all defense guy we're talking about potentially. Absolutely. And, you can throw him at Porter and Jamal Murray and, scheme him up in a way. So yeah, I don't hate that take at all. Before we keep talking about these plans, I do have to break some news right now.
Oh, let's go.
It's on the 12th spot. It's been filled.
Oh.
You guys talked about him.
Banchero?
Anyone want to guess?
I'm guessing
Banchero.
I'm guessing Chet.
It's not neither.
Kawhi?
Damn.
Kawhi.
There it is.
They made the right choice. They made the right choice.
Kawhi got the invite Sunday and I was like, let me think about it. And waited till everybody else got it. Sounds good.
Or he just hadn't checked his phone until right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, shit. He's like, yeah, I'll play.
Grant Hill's been calling him all night. It's like, bro, I'm getting ready for the playoffs. What's wrong? He's like, you gonna join Team USA? Oh, sure.
That's the right choice.
Yeah.
I think
Jeff Zilgett tweeted it. Kawhi Leonard will fill the 12th and final spot on the U.S. men's Olympic basketball team in Paris.
All right.
And Adrian Wojnarowski with the retweet. it's nice that this didn't happen after we were done recording.
Yeah.
No, we've been on a good pace. We've been
on a tear lately. You know, we'd prefer before the show that we found that out, but you know, we'll take some breaking news mid-show.
Yeah,
we'll take it.
But yeah, so
especially when we were talking about it before too.
Yeah, it all ties in. Happy Hour Hoops is a flat circle here, and it's just all basketball all the time, breaking news or not. So yeah, Steve, you like the Pels tonight? You were saying?
Yeah, I think bias. I want the Pels, like I said, because I would love to see LeBron versus Curry, but also too, if I'm picking who I think's gonna win, I do lean the Pelicans a little bit.
Okay, Jake, where are you at with this game?
Well, bias heavily on the Lakers. We know I'm going to be cheering for the Lakers. I do not want the last thing that I want, guys, is a LeBron elimination game against Steph Curry and the Warriors. Fuck that. Talk to me, miss me with that. I want no part of that.
The most,
it's the last thing I want in my life. So I would really hope that they can win tonight. I do think that the line is close tonight. It's going to be a close game. I'm leaning on the Lakers actually basketball wise, and Ingram coming back from the injury. Don't know if he's full health. The Davis thing, don't know what kind of health he's going to be at. Right. So that's kind of a wash to me. But I'm just going to pick LeBron and AD in one of these one-game matchups over the Pelicans. But it is crazy that the Pelicans are in this spot because, like you said, Dunny, we were talking about them and like hyping them up the last couple weeks. Like, damn, we're not giving them enough credit. Like, this is one of the best teams could be one of the best teams in the West that's played and has that ceiling. And now they end up in this 7th seed, mostly because the Ingram injury and the Suns went on a great run to end the season, going 7-3 and snagging that 6th seed from them. But the margins were so close in this West that someone was going to get screwed. And the Pelicans are kind of the one that you feel like are getting screwed here with this matchup with the Lakers. And then potentially, like you said, we'll talk about the next game, or the later game here, but I think they would have a preferable matchup in that, but still, like, it's tough. I'm just going to lean on the Lakers here. The Lakers have had good success against the Pelicans this year. I don't think that really matters for this one game. As Steve and I were talking about, I don't know if you were in here yet, Dunny. Tickets right now at the Smoothie King Center, $16 to get in the arena. So the home court, don't really care about that. There's probably going to be as many Lakers fans as there are Pelicans fans there, honestly.
Especially with that price.
That's why I'm going to lean towards the Lakers. I'm just going to go with LeBron and AD. But I do think this is going to be a game right down to the wire, and it'll be everything you want the play-in tournament to be.
Yeah, I see Lakers winning just for the I think deep down LeBron and AD both know that they, maybe they should have done things better, or maybe LeBron is just reflecting about another team that's not good enough around him, but they know they shouldn't be in this position probably, especially the 2 seasons they both had. It's kind of weird that they are in this position, but here we are again with the Lakers in the play-in. I don't know. It's tough to see them losing for me tonight, but I mean, Steve, you just laid out, all the good things about the Pelicans. Mm-hmm. They kind of, even though they did fall to the 7th seed, I think the second half of the season, they looked really, really good.
Guys stepped up too, right? When Ingram was out.
Yeah.
And got healthy.
I think they just, they have a lot of weapons that maybe the Lakers necessarily don't. And as far as the late game goes, I mean, how bad would that suck if the Pelicans and Kings both won?
Oh yeah.
And then the Kings beat the Lakers or something. That would throw.
That'd kill ratings.
That would throw a wrench in the entire.
That OKC Sacramento series is not doing any numbers. That's for sure.
Adam Silver would snap his play-in clipboard over his knee if that were to happen.
Are either of you guys giving Sacramento a chance tonight?
Yes, have to give him a chance, but
give him a chance. But I think for the same selfish reasons that you want to see the Lakers possibly lose tonight to get a Warriors Lakers, the same reason I want the Warriors to win. Same. Whether it's play the Lakers or not, I do want to see Steph in the playoffs.
Yeah, the Warriors have just been so much better over the second half of the season that it doesn't feel like they're the 10 seed in this. Like, they honestly feel like you could make the case that they're the best team out of these 4 because the way they've been playing the second half of the year. So, but the Kings, like the crowd, that's a home crowd advantage that they will actually have. It'll be they're looking for revenge from last year, everything, but I'm just leading Golden State. So
I am too. I think the big thing with me, and we kind of touched on this last week, Jake, when we talked about sixth man of the year. No Malik Monk is a big loss for the
Huge.
Sacramento Kings, and I really think that kind of changes up everything they don't want to do. Kevin Herter has not been that consistent this year. They really haven't found someone to kind of fill Monk's role coming off the bench. I know they tried Ellis. I know they tried Davion Mitchell. But in my mind, I just feel like Fox has been kind of up and down this year. He really has. And the Warriors have been playing a lot better defense too in the second half of this season. If Fox struggles again, you don't have Malik Monk to come off the bench and score 15 in the second quarter, or maybe play pretty much the entire second half and take a lot of that off of De'Aaron Fox. A lot rides on De'Aaron Fox here. And also too, I love Sabonis. This is like Sabonis's toughest matchup when it comes to when he has to play the Warriors. It's not his best series. We saw it last year in the playoffs. Yep. He kind of like shied away, and he doesn't like going up against Draymond Green. It's pretty clear and obvious when you watch Sabonis against Green. Plus, Trace Jackson-Davis has been fantastic.
Awesome.
Fantastic for the Warriors, and has really, really helped them, especially down low. And he's another super athletic, not crazy big, but he plays bigger than he is, which I think will cause Sabonis a lot of problems, because in my mind, I think Sabonis has probably been the best player on the Kings this year over Fox. And the loss of Monk I think is really going to kind of just put him out of sorts. And that's where I go Warriors. Also too, like it's Steph Curry in an elimination game, man. I know, like, Steph Curry has also had his ups and downs this year, but come on. If we're looking at both these teams, like both full rosters, who do I trust in the winner go home? It's always going to be Steph Curry.
Yeah, and I can clown Draymond Green all year, and there's obviously some stuff with Clay at the beginning of the year that I thought deserved clowning, but like, those guys are still Hall of Famers. Those guys still have all the championships. Those guys know how to win in this spot. Not to mention just the, I guess, mini rivalry that was born last year with this same team who, Steve, you just mentioned, they're down one of their best guys in that series from last year. Malik Monk is out. De'Aaron Fox, I would, go very far to say that he's not even close to the same player he was at that time last year right now. It's just the unfortunate truth. And then, if Draymond's even slightly locked in and just, wants to muck up this game, I think, and Clay and Steph are hitting their shots, like that's probably enough to beat this group, no matter how good Fox and Sabonis are tonight. So yeah, I lean heavily Warriors, but I'm hoping for a good game at the very least, especially if I'm gonna stay up on the East Coast to watch this until like almost 1 a.m. because you guys know I'll be locked in like that. I took a nap after work today.
You're on the Lakers too, Dunny?
I am, yeah.
Okay, so our only difference is Steve is rolling with the Pelicans, but we were all on the Warriors.
I'm telling you right now, Jake, we're getting LeBron versus Steph. We're getting LeBron versus Steph for the
I want no part of that. I want zero. You know what's better for TV ratings? LeBron versus Jokic for 4 games.
Yeah, it is. I'm not going to say it's not. I'm not going to deny that.
That's what I'm hoping for.
Fair enough.
You know why I also feel pretty good about the Golden State Warriors tonight? I just saw this right now. Nick Wright apparently said this on TV today. I think we are less than 12 hours away from the final game Steph, Draymond, and Clay play together. So Nick Wright has the Warriors losing tonight, and then he has the big three getting broken up this offseason, which I don't think that's that crazy that the big three gets broken up this offseason. I think that's at least one of them is definitely on the move. But I don't know. I don't see Warriors losing. So I
can't say anything bad about Nick
better.
Wright. I can't say anything bad about Nick Wright right now. He had Luka #1 in his MVP poll. So, so Nick Wright is on very good terms with me right now. I can't say anything bad about that, man. He can say whatever he wants right now. I don't care.
Okay. Fair enough. Yeah, should we go to East, or are we just going through the West playoffs?
Let's do the plans first.
Yeah, let's do the plans.
Okay. So yeah, then in the Eastern Conference, another 7-8 battle that is just going to be must watch. Sixers Heat. Sixers with Embiid just coming back and really seemingly picking up right where he left off. Just The scoring hasn't skipped a beat. Maxey playing a lot better since Embiid has returned, much like he was at the beginning of the season. The Heat just being as weird as they've been all year, just inconsistent, but then when it's on, they look really good. Obviously, another team that's dealt with a lot of injury, added Terry Rozier at the deadline. Bam's had some big splashes this year. The craziest part about the Miami Heat for me is Jimmy Butler just really hasn't been Jimmy Butler this year, it seems. And I know he turns it on this time of year. I know he turns it to playoff Jimmy, but I think even with that, it's still been a little underwhelming when I turn on Heat games. But we do have this matchup, and then Bulls, Hawks with the 9 and 10, which, they make a little more sense when you look at the Eastern Conference compared to the West, just how competitive the West was. Like Bulls, Hawks seem a little bit more like play-in teams, but also both teams that are very capable of winning games. The Bulls have some of the best clutch numbers in the NBA this year, and then the Hawks, obviously, just a month ago, beat the Celtics twice in a row without Trae Young. So, they can win big games if they need to. And Trae Young's back. DeJounte Murray is doing his thing this year. Let's start with 7-8 though. What are you guys excited for this Heat Sixers matchup? Because it's going to be awesome. And then who do you got?
Sixers Heat, I think, is two teams that you look at them, you're like, how are they playing teams, right? When you look at the rosters, when you look at how they play, to me, I lean Philly here. It's crazy because, I usually never lean Philly in the playoffs, especially against Miami. And what's my rule with the Miami Heat? I don't jump off the ship until it sinks when it comes to the playoffs because I always eat my words. But Philly has been on fire since Embiid has been back. And that hasn't really been a full, we're going to let him go, play 100% Joel Embiid. He'll play. He's been playing, and he's been playing significant minutes, but it's not like, oh, we're going to unleash him for the playoffs. And what did I say probably a month ago that with Philly? I was like, if I have to take him seriously, Embiid has to come back and play some basketball before the play-in. You can't just show him up. And that's what Philly did. And they've won 8 straight games. And they've been on fire. Also, too, for Miami, the guy they acquired, who I love, Terry Rozier, is out. He's ruled out this game, which I think is a really big loss because Miami, is as good as they've been in the past playoffs. They've lost a lot of outside shooting, and that's something you kind of need against a team like this Philly team. Without Rozier, who's probably one of their best outside shooters, I don't see them beating Philly in Philly. Also, too, this is kind of Philly. I don't want to say this is like the biggest game for them in a while, but this is Philly giving them a chance, right, to play the 2-seed New York Knicks without Julius Randle, a playoff series that I think they believe they can win. A nice little rivalry there. Yeah. This is Philly in a year where Embiid was running away with the MVP before he got hurt, where Tyrese Maxey was breaking out, and they're like, this is the Philly team that's going to get over the playoff hump. I don't think they're messing around anymore, and I think they're going to take advantage of this Heat team. I think Philly wins this plan, and I think they're live to beat the Knicks in the next round. And how anti-Philly I usually am in the playoffs. I feel a little different about this Philly team.
Nick Nurse is the biggest difference why you should feel different, because
that's completely
the difference between him and Doc Rivers.
Matchups. Nurse to Doc Rivers.
Yeah, exactly. And Nurse is going to make adjustments in that series. And Tibbs, not the greatest playoff coach. Like, that's a guy who's had playoff woes throughout his. So, yeah, I think this is I'm all in on the Sixers here. And I'm all in on, if it's Sixers, Knicks, that's I know we talk about a lot of the most interesting series. That could be the best series out of everything. If Embiid's healthy playing this Knicks team, that is going to be incredible basketball. And like you said, the Sixers want to stay out of that. They want to stay out of that Celtics bracket. Like, if you can get into it and then you win you beat the Knicks, and then you have either the Bucks, who I think the Sixers would feel good about a series against the Bucks, even if they get through and Giannis is healthy. And I think they feel really good if they're playing the Pacers.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting side of that bracket if there is some chaos. And I wouldn't even say it's chaos, because I think the Sixers and Knicks would probably be, if the Sixers are in this position, if one of those wins, they're going to be favored in the series over the next team. Because if the Sixers pull it off, then everybody's going to be like, oh, wow, like the Sixers are here, they're back. you're going to feel a lot better about them going into a series against the Bucks. And we'll get to the Bucks later. I don't know if any of us are feeling really good about the Bucks' chances right now. So, and I didn't say anything about the Heat there, but like you said, they got a lot of injuries right now, and it just feels like there's a different class between these two teams. I think the Heat are destined for that Celtics series where you can get your revenge, Dunny. I feel like that's where we're looking at.
I'm looking at it too.
Yeah, I have the Sixers winning this game as well, which would, if the Heat have to go win another game to be so lucky to play us, but I think that's what would ultimately happen. I don't think the Heat will get up enough for this game against the Sixers, but I do think they're able to beat the Bulls or Hawks. I mean, what a catastrophic collapse it would be if they didn't, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think, I don't know. There's at this time of year, I like to break up Celtics fans into like 3 different groups. I think there's people who are actually scared of certain opponents right now. There's people who, like me, I'll tell you who I would rather play, but I don't, I think it's bad juju to actually like try to hope to play someone specific or, intentionally trying to play someone specific. So I'm in the camp where I'm fine sharing who I'd rather play, and that would be the Heat in this situation.
Yeah.
Just because, I mean, it's just kind of obvious. I think no matter who's the 1 seed, no matter who was getting lined up to play here in the first round, the 76ers, like you guys mentioned, are on a tear since Embiid came back. He obviously has all the motivation in the world. He didn't play basketball for months. He is scoring just the same as when he left. And, Maxi's playing good ball again. And then, Jake, you just mentioned it. They have a coach who's competent and who has recently won an NBA championship. A lot more recent than Doc Rivers. You hear people talk about all the time who played for Nick Nurse. I know Pat Bev was only in Philly for a short period of time, but he said Nurse was one of his favorite coaches. Like, things are just different for the Sixers than the Heat right now. So if anyone was looking for that answer, as a Celtics fan, I would rather play the Heat. I do think that's how it's going to unfold if they can beat the Bulls or the Hawks after they lose to Philly. But yeah, I think that's just what it looks like. And we talked about how the Heat are different once the playoffs come around. And I think you're fair to have that sentiment, Steve, where you're like, I can't, I'll go down with this Heat shit. But it could be now, because they also, the shooting from outside has been struggles. And I think people forget, like, 2 of the unlikely heroes from last year were Gabe Vincent and Caleb Martin. And I know Caleb Martin's still around, but Gabe Vincent's gone. And I mean, do we expect that again, the same as last year?
Right.
Because,
and let's not forget Strus either.
Yeah.
Strus had a nice impact. He's no longer there.
So yeah, I think Philly should handle business tomorrow night against Miami, and I just think matchup wise, the Celtics would much rather play the Heat anyway, other than what the fans are thinking. I think on paper, just their size will be too much for Miami this time around, adding Porzingis, and then obviously not having to go up against the Goliath that is Joel Embiid.
Right. So then what about Bulls Hawks? I know we're probably all going to pick the Heat to move on against the winner of this game. Do you think either of these teams have a chance to beat the Heat, or I guess the Sixers? You do?
Yeah, I mean, for all the reasons, I don't think they have a chance to beat the Sixers if the Sixers were to lose. Okay. But I do against the Heat for all the reasons we just kind of laid out. It just seems like there's quite a bit of dysfunction. There's some injury there. And then, like I said at the top, I know that these guys seem like more playing teams than the guys in the West, but at the end of the day, the Bulls, I feel like the Bulls can beat anyone on any given night. Like, they have offensive firepower, they have size, and then the Hawks kind of the same thing.
Games as the Bulls, right?
Right. They're kind of similar in a way. Like, the record doesn't show you that nothing really jumps off the page that like scares you about either of these teams, but both teams have veterans, they have scores, they have some size and some capacity, they have some athleticism on the wings. Like, these are all recipes that you need to win close, talented games. And I think if they draw the Heat, who knows? And if Rozier is, down another game and Jimmy doesn't really turn into playoff Jimmy because it's still play in Jimmy, and he's only like in mid form. These are all things that can happen. So I do see the Heat winning if they lose, but honestly, I think Bulls Hawks might be the toughest one to pick out of in this 9-10 matchup here.
Yeah, I mean, you got playing Trey, who we know how good playing
Oh
Trey
my
is
God.
against, a Bulls team that, like I said, they're a very clutch team this year.
Yep.
As JBC has said it, nobody's better at coming from 20 points down than the Chicago Bulls. And I don't think that's a recipe to win in the postseason. They've shown they can do that. They're great in a lot of close games. And the big thing when I talked about it last week of the jump Kobe White made, I think really gives them kind of a 1A, 1B option with DeMar DeRozan. Vucevic is the one that kind of scares me a little bit because I think against like a type of player like Bam is, I think that would give Vucevic a lot of trouble. I think he could get away with it in Atlanta. And I am going to pick the Bulls to beat the Hawks. And the big reason I'm picking them to beat the Hawks is Jalen Johnson's not going to play for the Atlanta Hawks. And we talk about most improved NBA players this year. Yep. I know he won't really get any recognition when it comes to most improved player of the year.
Yeah.
But Jalen Johnson has also been one of the most improved players this year, where he has gone from a guy that people just kind of forgot about, right? He had his issues at Duke, and then he was just like, oh, is this guy even going to work out in the NBA? Is he even going to stay in the league? And next thing you know, man, he's made an impact on both sides of the court in a big way for Atlanta, helped them get through injuries, and not having him on the floor, especially a guy like him, he's another one who can do pretty much everything you ask him, right? He can shoot a little bit. He's got size. He can drive. He can get 15 rebounds a night if he wants to. He'll also pass. Like Jalen Johnson's a really good player that no one really talks about. Not having him, I think, really hurts the Hawks against the Bulls. So I will take the Bulls there. And as much as I want to take the Bulls to beat Miami and then just get absolutely destroyed by the Celtics, even though, it'll be fun. And I would love to see the Bulls get into the playoffs. I keep looking at that Vucevic versus Bam Adebayo, and every time it has me lean Miami. And I feel like Miami just has a little bit more physicality than Chicago, especially down low when it comes to the playoffs. But I'll take the Bulls over the Hawks, and then I got to stay with the Heat over the Bulls.
Who you got, Jake?
Well, for this matchup, I've got the Bulls over the Hawks. I think the Bulls Heat game would be very close. I think that would be a fantastic game, and I think I'm going to pick the Bulls.
Ooh.
I think I'm ready to put a nail in the Heat. I really think I am. And I know that I've said that for the last couple of years, but more it's been just like wanting to do it the last couple of years. This year, there's nothing about the Heat that have shown me to take this team completely seriously. And I think this Bulls team, that clutch rating is going to have to come in at some point. And I don't like the Bam and Vucevic matchup. I don't like that the Heat are without Terry Rozier. Like that, Terry Rozier was there to solve a problem for this team, like a major problem that they had. Really started clicking, as you were saying, especially coming into this end of the season. If he can't go for both these games, it's going to be tough for them. So I'll just pick the Bulls. I'll take it, and then the Bulls can have a nice sweep by the Celtics. There will be some electric atmospheres at the Garden at United Center. Yeah, they'll get some good
seafood.
It'll be good. It'll be good for the Bulls. They can say they're a playoff team. All good stuff. Donnie, you picked the Sixers and Bulls as well, correct?
I picked the Sixers. I'm very torn. I think you guys have just convinced me to take the Bulls. I think if Jalen Johnson was playing, that might be enough to get me to take the Hawks. But I think I'm going Bulls too. I think the experience, I think the kind of surge that Kobe White's made, this whole season, but towards the second half of the season as well. I think just maturing as a player on top of kind of finding his groove will be enough. And I also think just the Bulls Hawks game will be more entertaining than people maybe want to admit. But yeah, I think I'll go Bulls Sixers for the first games, and then I do think the Heat would win though against the Bulls, strictly because that is an opportunity to play the Celtics, and I just think that Jimmy and Spoelstra would die before they give up another opportunity.
That's a good
For the
point too.
Celtics.
They're
That's a
not
great
giving
point,
up that
yeah.
series.
Something about Trey, and especially what I saw DeJounte do to the C's about a month ago.
They don't want that part. No 10 seed has made the playoffs from the play-in yet. So the Hawks and Warriors trying to break that.
Ooh,
Wow, that's very
Warriors.
interesting.
Okay.
Yeah. So
All
we'll
right,
see.
we getting to the playoffs?
Let's get
Yes.
into it.
Let's get to the playoffs.
So
Where
first,
start?
we got our
East.
we just have we're going to the East, but we have our 1 and 2 seeds. We don't know the matchups are. If it was our picked matchups here, I'll just roll with the Heat for you guys.
Okay.
And keep it clean. It would be Celtics, Heat, Knicks, Sixers, potentially. But the top 2 seeds here, we don't know their matchups, so we're not going to try to break down games that we don't know if they're going to happen or not. So my thinking was, is this, if you were to handicap it right now, would this be your Eastern Conference Finals?
No.
Would this be the matchup? No. It's just adamant no from Steve.
No,
The Knicks not doing. The Celtics getting upset. You got the Celtics losing, Steve?
You think
What happened to Stevie Boston?
You think Stevie Boston topping off the Celtics at this point in the season? Stop it. I actually today I said to one of my coworkers, he's got shout out Wake. He's got a draft where they have all the NBA and NHL All-Star teams. I think he's doing it with like 5 or 6 friends, and they got to pick the team they think who's going to win the most rounds. And he had first overall pick. He's like, do I trade the pick maybe, or do I just take the Celtics? And I go, wait, listen, man. Listen to me right now. If there's any team that I think is not guaranteed, but I think as a lock of anyone to get to the championship, not win it, but get to the finals in the NHL, the NBA this year, it's the Boston Celtics. I think their road is the easiest. The East is kind of in shambles a little bit. I'm not overreacting to any of the Celtics losses when they had a 15-game lead in the Eastern Conference. Yeah. They basically clinched the 1 seed with 3 weeks to go. I'm looking at this team on paper, and what I said, at the start of the year, 1 through 5, best starting 5 in basketball. I don't think it's close. I don't think there's a team that can really compete fully healthy when the Celtics, have their 1 through 5 going of Drew, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, Derek White, and Kristaps Porzingis, right? However, what I didn't know is that Peyton Pritchard is an absolute baller in the NBA. Sam Hauser, and you still got Big Al Horford. So not only do they probably have the best starting 5, they probably got some of the best depth because, like we said, in the playoffs, benches kind of shrink from, right, like 10, 11-guy rotations at times to almost 7 to like 9-man rotations. Usually 8's kind of the sweet spot, right? Like 7, 8-man rotations, usually the sweet spot in the NBA playoffs. So the Celtics to me lock. The Knicks, I'm just concerned. And this is the big thing. I love Jalen Brunson. He's been such a fun story this year. He should get I think he'll get second team All NBA. He should at least. He's been unbelievable. He's going to get some 4th and 5th place MVP votes, probably first place if it's Stephen A's ballot, but doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But regardless, Jalen Brunson's had an unbelievable season. Like I said, coming from the Mavs, like I saw, he'll be a solid player. I never saw him turn into this, he'd turn into this type of player in the Knicks. And I love what the Knicks did, kind of recreated that Villanova team, right? With Josh Hart, Dante DiVincenzo. But losing Randall, and I know Randall hasn't been the best in the playoffs, but losing Randall, I think, really hurts the New York Knicks because Jalen Brunson, as much as we love him, he's a 6'1" undersized guard. Yep. And the playoffs, he's going to get thrown doubles all the time. He's going to get not bullied, but it's going to be very physical play against him, right? And I know Jalen Brunson plays big. I get that. But you can only do so much, and it gets exhausting. And I just don't really see a consistent second offensive option on the Knicks in a playoff situation yet. Yes, Dante DiVincenzo has been fantastic in the regular season. We haven't really seen it in a playoff scenario yet, right? He's never kind of been the second option. I love OG Anunoby. He's more on defense. Love Josh Hart. He's more about defense. So that concerns me a little bit with the Knicks. And also, too, their starters have been playing playoff minute basketball all year long. Well, these other guys have been playing, 32, 34 minutes a night. The Knicks guys are playing 44.
Yep.
And that's gonna add up when you get to these playoff series, when it's a lot more physical basketball. Guys are really just going all in on it, and it's just gonna be throwing everything they can at Jalen Brunson to make him uncomfortable. I love Brunson. I just think it's a lot on the Knicks. And to be honest with you, I do think the East, it's not maybe the easiest or not the, I don't know, the toughest road for the New York Knicks, right? With Milwaukee or Indiana, but they got to get by the first round. That's either Philly or Miami.
Yeah.
That's either Philly or Miami. So this game hasn't even happened yet. But either way, you're getting a war against either Embiid, who was the most dominant player before he got hurt, or Miami, who will play as physical as they can with you. Exactly. The Knicks bullied the Cavs, and the Miami bullied the Knicks.
Yep.
So that's my biggest concern with the Knicks, and that's why I can't just write in this 1-2 matchup in the Eastern Conference Finals. I think the Celtics get there. Don't get me wrong. But the Knicks, I think, will have a brutal first-round matchup, regardless of if it's Philly or Miami. And when you have that type of matchup with a team that's relying on one guy as much as the New York Knicks are, and a team that's basically been playing playoff minutes from the start of the season, players get exhausted.
Yep.
We saw Caitlin Clark against South Carolina in the championship. She got exhausted in the second half because just so much was on her, and she carried that team as far as she can. And Brunson has been doing that with this team. I mean, he carried them to the 2 seed. And I'm not taking anything away from Brunson. I love him. One of my favorite players to watch. I just think it's going to be a lot tougher coming. And like I said, Philly or Miami, that's no reward for getting the 2 seed.
No. And
that's no reward.
I would probably lean toward, if it comes down to it, I might just bet Philly on whatever underdog series prices if it comes down. I don't think I would do it with the Heat, but I would with Philly. And it's a great point about Randall. Like, Randall has not been a playoff performer, but just him being out there, it would be helpful just to have that weapon out there. They're going to need to shoot the hell out of the ball, and that's asking a lot of DiVincenzo, asking a lot of Hart. It's asking a lot of Anunoby, who is a streaky shooter at best in his career. But he really has to be their second star and show a level of scoring that he hasn't done consistently, especially when it comes to the playoffs.
And he's got to play. Like, he can't.
And he's got to play.
He can't get hurt.
When he plays, man, this team is damn near unstoppable. But can they keep that up? Like you said, the scoring is going to dip. They're going to be. The thing about the Knicks is they're going to drag you down into the dirt for basically every series. But I think that plays into it with the Knicks. If you want to get into the foul game with Embiid, he'll just go to the line all night and be happy to do that. So I'm in completely lockstep with you. I think we haven't said much about the Celtics. We'll leave that to Dunny to hype them up here. We don't need. Yeah, exactly.
We'll talk about them in June.
Or at the end of this show when we make our finals picks. That'll be plenty of Celtics talk too. Not too worried about them, especially with the bracket they have on that side now to get to the conference finals. The Knicks, like you said, it's going to be a war no matter who it is.
Yeah, the only last thing I'll say about the Knicks here, and it kind of has to do more with the Heat, is obviously Steve said it best, like getting the 1 and 2 seed. Like, there's no reward really this year in the Eastern Conference. You got to play, it's either the Heat, who have all the experience in the world, they've made 2 finals in the last 4 years, or it's the Sixers, who probably have, the most motivation maybe outside of the Celtics in the Eastern Conference. And they've been on a tear since Embiid came back. I do think the Knicks would struggle a little bit with the Sixers, and it's crazy because the Knicks, were kind of beating everyone down the stretch to end the season, and Miami was struggling a bit. But the one big win Miami did have to close the season was against the New York Knicks, and it was a game where Rozier went nuclear against them, and I think he had like 34 points. I mean, the Heat are capable of beating this Knicks team too, if that's what it comes down to. And I couldn't agree more with you guys about the Randall piece. Like, yes, they've accomplished getting the 2 seed, without him for most of the season, but just having another guy who can put the ball in the basket, another, just skilled guy with that size would help. And either of these series, especially if they draw Philly. So it's going to be interesting for the Knicks. They're definitely not going to have an easy road.
Nope.
That's for sure.
Nope, not at all. Let's get into the next series. One of the ones that we have set up, the Milwaukee Bucks and the Indiana Pacers. Dunny, no Giannis for at least the start of the series. And we have not gotten any amount of games, just the start of the series.
Right.
Yeah, so whatever that means.
Last year, he missed the first 2 games. Or was it a couple years ago we missed the first 2 games?
With the back?
Yeah.
I think that was last year.
So it was 2 games that they sat him out. This is obviously a different injury. Can the Bucks get this done with a hobbled Giannis? That's my biggest question. Like, even if he comes back.
I think they can because, I mean, like if we're just being honest here, man, the East is a lot weaker than the West, right? Like this isn't
the West. One quick stat: the West, for the first time in NBA history, had 10 teams over 46 wins. That's the first time in NBA history that's happened for a conference.
That is nuts. Yeah. So there you go, man. Like the 6th seed in the West is the Phoenix Suns. Like the Pacers are not the Phoenix Suns. Nope. I'll tell you that right now. So I think that they can do it without Giannis. I think it will be tough and a lot to overcome. I think it's going to come down to Dame, right? And we've seen him do it in some games, and then we've seen this season where Dame is being brought in as the second superstar has kind of been disappointing. So I think Milwaukee's able to do this for a couple reasons. Like Portis has been amazing this season. I think Brook Lopez still gives teams problems, especially when a team like the Pacers, outside of Miles Turner, like don't have too much size. So that alone could end up being an issue, especially if Giannis ends up coming back. And then the Pacers started super hot, and I know they got the best of the Bucks in the regular season. A lot of their games came early in the year, but they went 3-1 against this Bucks group this year. So, I mean, the Pacers probably coming in with a lot of confidence, but they're going to be without Mathurin, who I think they won all 3 of those games with. And then I think, if Giannis, especially when Giannis comes back, they'll be undersized. I think the Bucks could get it done, but I think, if there's no Giannis for even this entire series or even, half of it, I don't really know what the beginning of the series means. Shams needs to give us more than that. But yeah, this could just end up being a competitive series. It can go either way. I think if Giannis was healthy, I don't think there's any way I'd say that, but it looks good for the Pacers.
Yeah, it really does. I'm kind of leaning the Pacers a little bit in this series. We've seen the Bucks struggle big time at the end of this year. The one thing that kind of stood out to me a little bit with the Bucks, though, is a lot of their losses were to bad teams, and they seem to play up against the better teams, which is an encouraging sign, but that's also with Giannis. And a banged up Giannis is never a good sign for a Bucks team. When they're rolling, when they're clicking, not even halfway decent situation right now in Milwaukee. They have been struggling big time. Like you said, Dunny, Dame, we really haven't seen kind of the Dame we're used to seeing besides pretty much the All-Star game. That was kind of the only time we saw like Dame and what we expected. And I mean, I don't want to keep picking on the guy, but Doc Rivers. I mean, the Bucks, I believe, were the first team. I want to say they were the first team in NBA history where they had 30 wins when they did, and they didn't reach 50 wins, which is crazy.
30-13, I believe.
30-13, and they didn't reach 50 wins, which is crazy. And the big thing with Indiana against Milwaukee is what I've said with the Pacers this year, and obviously, I've always liked the Pacers, but the Pacers are a very, very good team when they're comfortable, right? When they're playing kind of how they want to play. And when they play a team that kind of forces them to maybe slow it down or something, it makes them uncomfortable. It kind of changes their whole situation. When they've played the Bucks this year, and I know they were 3-1 the regular season series. They also beat them in the semifinals of the in-season tournament. The Indiana Pacers have never scored under, I believe it was 124 points, I want to say. They scored 126, 128, 126, 122. Sorry, that was the lowest, and 142.
Jeez.
They've been able to score at will against the Milwaukee Bucks. And yes, I know the most recent game they played the Bucks was, I think, January 3rd. But the fact of the matter is, we talk about, Indiana's kind of struggled a little bit, kind of slowed down. So has Milwaukee. And you're taking the best player in this series by far, without question. You're taking him off the court, and you're not even telling us what game he's going to be back. You're just saying he's going to miss the start of the series. This could be a situation where Indiana wins the first two on the road and Milwaukee doesn't even bring him back.
Yeah.
Because it's too much of a risk. So I'm going with the Pacers here. I think it will be a good series. I hope Giannis does return because I want to watch Giannis play playoff basketball. I think Indiana wins probably 6 or 7 games, but it's just a number of factors why I'm going with the Pacers here. Doc Rivers, I can't trust him. Dame hasn't shown that he can be a true number one, especially when Giannis is out. And Milwaukee has had 5 chances this year to make Indiana uncomfortable, and they haven't once. Granted, it was earlier in the year, but still, Indiana, nothing's going to change there. That gives Indiana confidence, and if they can run, they can play with anyone. And Milwaukee's just letting them play their style. It's a different Milwaukee team than previous years, right? Milwaukee's defense was always what we used to be hyped up about, or what's always helping. It's like, you got Giannis, but you also have a top 5 defense. Well, Drew Holiday's gone. Replace it with Damian Lillard, which is a huge, huge jump in defense. And they've been a bottom half defensive team since Doc Rivers got there. Let's be honest, guys. I think it's been a large enough sample size now to say that's just kind of how Milwaukee is under Doc Rivers.
Yes.
So
they're a 500 team with the guy.
Yeah.
Like that's where we're at with the Bucks. Like they're a 500, worse than 500 team, I think, actually, with Doc Rivers as the head coach. That's the biggest difference with me is that Mike Budenholzer, for whatever his faults were, and we've seen Doc Rivers do, and this is a series that Doc Rivers loses, like in a lot of years, where it's a team, the Pacers, 47 wins, like you said, they matched up well earlier. Everything you guys said, I'm leaning the Pacers on this. I don't think, especially with a hampered Giannis, even with Giannis, I think this would have been a series. A calf injury is hard to come back from, man, especially for a guy who dominates with size and his leaping ability and everything. He's going to be tentative on that. And he should be. Like, you don't want to mess around with a calf injury, right? Like, and deal with any long-term injury that you can get from that. So I'm going to lean the Pacers here. I think it's a good matchup if they can, no pun intended, play to their pace and keep the speed up on the Bucks and get them in a shootout. That's what's going to help them the most. And it's crazy to say that with Dame Lillard on the other side, but I would, if it's no Giannis, I'm taking the combo of Halliburton and Siakam with that star power over Dame and the squad that they have there. Because I don't really none of us really like this Bucks team. Like the talk when we were thinking about the Bucks earlier in the year is Giannis and Dame have to be overwhelming, and they have not been overwhelming this year. Giannis has been when he's healthy, but Dame has not been nearly at all. And so I think this is right for the Pacers, and that's why we're talking about this. That Knicks, that other bracket right now is you never know what could happen into there. Right. But if the Pacers win this series and then go to play the Knicks or one of these other teams, like that's a tough matchup too. But I'm leaning towards the Pacers here.
Yeah, and the last thing I want to say about the Pacers here, which is actually in their favor, is I think a lot of people maybe outside looking in and just the casual basketball fan throwing on the 6-3 matchup and knowing, probably knowing a lot more about the Bucks than the Pacers, you would think that this Pacers group doesn't have experience, in which a lot of them don't. But people forget Pascal Siakam is an NBA champion. Like he's been there before. He's gotten it done, and he doesn't even have to be like the main guy on this team. We know that that's Halliburton. And like we mentioned a couple of times already, like the Pacers have gotten it done against the Bucks several times this year. They have Siakam now. I think for the Bucks to have a chance, it's gonna have to be someone having a crazy series. Like Middleton's gonna have to wake up and play like he did when the Bucks won the championship. But I don't know. I mean, we've seen that in very, very small spurts this year. We haven't really seen Dame and Middleton kind of cook on their own without Giannis. So I think it's just very dependent on the Giannis injury. But I mean, if that keeps him out for more than 2 games, I think very much the Pacers to win.
Yeah. And I know it's not anything too crazy or too important, but we saw the Pacers when the stakes were a little higher, play very well in the play-in tournament earlier this year,
Yes,
right? I know it's completely different playoffs to play in, but it's still, the stakes are a little higher. These games matter a little more, and the Pacers played great. They beat Milwaukee too.
Yeah, they blew them out. And it was we'll see what happens there with the series. I guess I got to talk about the Cleveland Cavaliers now.
Yeah, you too. Sorry.
Playing the Orlando Magic. It's crazy because like the Discord, this Cavs team, there was did I send you guys that chart? I think I did a couple weeks ago of the charting of teams throughout the season. And the Cavs were like a middle of the road, and then they spiked up really high and were one of the best NBA ratings, and then they were back lower than they were at the beginning of the year. And that's been the Cavs season. Now they have a lot of injuries right now, or have been dealing with a lot of injuries all year. And the most important injury right now is we said it right when Donovan Mitchell first went out and got the injections in his knee. And I said, there's no time that you get those PLP injections into your knee and it's a good thing. And that it's just to maintain to the end of the year. And Don has not looked right. The knee hasn't looked good. He's had some very poor games, even games where he's just not even shooting, like just games where he's like, I'm not going to hurt my team by chucking these up because I'm not feeling good the back half of the year. Without Donovan Mitchell, the Cavs team is a play-in team, maybe. And without a healthy Donovan Mitchell, like they're only one game ahead of all these teams. Dunny, you said it earlier. I don't like liking teams avoiding matchups and everything else. That's what the Cavs did. The Cavs were up on the Hornets and were like, we don't want to play the Sixers. We're going to tank this game to play the Orlando Magic, who now know that and are going to be motivated coming into the series thinking they got disrespected. The Magic played the Cavs tough all this year. So I'm just leaning Orlando. Like I don't, there's nothing that I feel good about the way the Cavs are playing basketball right now. And I would pick the Magic in 6 and feel very comfortable about that.
Yeah, that was in no way a shot when I said that earlier at the Cavs, but I did
No, they
realize
deserve a shot.
that they had done that right as I was saying it. I tend to be in lockstep with you with everything you just said, and it's tough because I think the Cavs should have the betting chance here. Like I think they should be the better team, but I just have really no idea what the fuck's been going on with them like the last month or so of this NBA season. I mean, from the leaks and what's being said in the locker room to Mitchell wearing a Cavs hat and saying that he was going to extend with the Cavaliers, then all of a sudden all the reports are completely the opposite way about how there's no chance of that happening now. Mobley, I think, kind of not really being to the point where we all thought he might be at this point. And I still think he's a good player and still is very, solid for this series, especially matching up with some of the guys that the Magic have. But I mean, just could not be more opposite as far as vibes go. Like Magic end the season so hot, have a chance to grab the 2 seed. Obviously they didn't, but they were right in the fight for it too. The year Paulo's had, the emergence of, say what you want about Jonathan Isaac, all the injuries and, all the stuff when COVID was going on and he didn't want to kneel for the anthem. I feel like he got a lot of shit from just off-court stuff and dealt with so many injuries. And now he's one of the better defensive players in the league. Yep. And he's come into his own. Suggs, same thing for the Orlando Magic, come into his own as a defender. Like just everything seems to be pointing like up arrow for the Orlando Magic and down arrow for the Cavaliers as far as vibes and chemistry and all those things. I still think talent level, Cleveland outweighs that, and maybe we see playoff Don and he just goes off like we know he's capable of. And I think if just a couple other unlikely heroes step up for the Cavs, it could go either way. But if you're basing it off vibes, you have to lean Orlando here.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you guys. The biggest thing for me, because I kind of agree with everything said, is the Cavs guards. I just can't trust their health right now. I really can't. It just feels like neither of them are fully healthy, and we've kind of seen it with how inconsistent both of them have played. And to each of theirs credit, right? When Garland needed to step up because Donovan Mitchell was out, Garland wasn't fully healthy. When Donovan Mitchell needed to, take more on the load because Garland was out, Donovan Mitchell wasn't fully healthy. And that's a big concern to me against an Orlando Magic team that is going to play very, very good on the defensive end, especially with their guards. Their guards are very good defensive guards. And
Oh, yeah.
I just don't really see, the Cleveland Cavaliers guards that are kind of banged up a little bit, not fully healthy, really kind of taking the series over, because I think that's the way they win this series. Also, too, when you talk about a young team, right? When you talk about a young team, you want to make them uncomfortable. That's kind of how you get the young team to kind of just have not their best game in the playoffs, make a lot of mistakes. And the Cleveland Cavaliers play the exact style of basketball that the Orlando Magic want to play. And the Orlando Magic have the size and have the depth to match with Cleveland's bigs. So to me, that's kind of pointing all the arrows towards the Magic, where I think they can play a good series against Cleveland. I think there's a couple X factors in this, right? Number one, if Donovan Mitchell can just play like Donovan Mitchell has in the playoffs before, I think that could be the one that pushes Cleveland over the edge. And then also, too, Evan Mobley has looked pretty good since he's been back. And I think he could be someone who could take a step in this series and, kind of be that X factor for the Cavs.
Yes.
But when I look at that, you're relying on a guy who's clearly has been battling with injuries in the second half of the season, and also a guy who just got back from being injured. Granted, it was a few weeks ago, but really hasn't taken that step yet of being that guy who's reliable on offense. We've seen it in spurts from Mobley. We just haven't seen it consistently. When I look at Orlando Magic, it's not one guy. I know Banchero's been fantastic. I know like I said, no one really talks about him, even though how good he's been since his rookie season. But it's a team effort with this team. It's a different guy each night. If the Magic is the type of team where you can have 5 guys score over 15 points and not one of them's over 25 points.
Yeah.
And when I look at that, that's just kind of the formula to beat the Cavs. They're the much healthier team going into this series. And like I said, Cleveland, wins a lot of games because of their slow, methodical style and their size. That's right up Orlando's alley. And if you want to make a young team uncomfortable, playing the exact style of basketball that they want to play is not the way to do it. So I'm going to take Orlando here. I think this is probably going to go the distance. I think it's a 7-game series. I could see it in 6, but I just think these teams are too similar in the idea of like their style, where I don't think one team's going to run away with the series.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I think that the Mobley piece is important because he's played a lot better the second half of the year once he came back from injury. He's looked more comfortable, especially offensively. Doesn't always show in the stats, but just in the flow of the offense and everything, it's looked better. Yeah, if Mitchell is if Mitchell is close to healthy for this series, like he's just feeling better and can do it, the Cavs should be favorites in almost every game in this series because Mitchell is the guy. As close as as amazing and good as Banchero has been this year and his future is, Mitchell is far and away the best player on the court in all these games. But you just don't know. Like you just have, like you've seen it in spurts with him since he got the injection, but has the face injury, he had the knee. We haven't seen prime Donovan Mitchell since really before the All-Star break, like maybe a little bit after. But it's been about over a month since he's been fully healthy, and that's the biggest X factor for the Cavs in this entire playoffs. If Mitchell's playing great, who knows what it's going to be a tough matchup with the Celtics in the second round, no matter what. That's my only defense of them avoiding the Sixers in this first round and not taking the 2 seed. Everybody's like, oh man, now they got to play the Celtics. Like, you're gonna have to play the Celtics at some point.
Yeah.
Like, what does it matter if you play them in the second round or the third round? And also, if you think Donovan, his knee is already hurt, like you don't want to face the Celtics when he's dragged through 2 series where he's had to play the Knicks and the Magic and gotten bullied, and then you're gonna get like swept out of the building. If he's just trying to push through for a 2-month run, you want that team earlier, not later, in my mind. So we'll see what happens. I'm going with the Magic too, though. I'll be nervous. I'll probably change my mind on Saturday when Game 1 starts, and I'll be locked in. But I don't feel good about this Cavs effort right now.
Last thing I want to say on the Cavs, and this could actually benefit them. I think if Mitchell is even close to himself and he's hitting the 3 ball, we know Garland could get it going. I think that might be their chance to win this series, is if they shoot the 3 ball the way that they can with Strus and Yang both being able to knock it down. That's the one part of Orlando's game that's kind of lacking is shooters. They don't really have shooting at all, really, in their starting lineup. And then, their depth, it doesn't really have that many shooters either. So if Cleveland can make this a shootout and they get hot from three in a couple of these games and Orlando can't match that definitely heavily favors Cleveland. So, keep an eye out for that. And then we talked about Strus and Yang. Strus, a guy the Miami Heat is missing big time. He's hit a million threes in clutch moments all over in different rounds of the playoffs and the finals. So that they have guys who are able to do it.
We haven't even mentioned Karis LeVert's name at all here, who's going to be a boomer bust guy for this whole season.
Exactly.
That is the thing about and I'm most interested to see how the Cavs do this is what their rotation is for the playoffs. Could be really short, could be deeper, but there was
no.
I don't know if Sam's making the cut. If they need a boost shooting, he might get it. But
what would you prefer? Would you prefer them to go a little deeper based on like kind of how their injuries have been in the guards, or would you prefer them to just kind of play that 7-man, 8-man?
I think you have to go deeper, and I think you have to stagger Allen and Mobley for most of the series. Against any
see,
team.
that hurts them. I
know it does, but they're not going to
even against Orlando
otherwise.
With size though, because Orlando's big.
They'll play him a lot against Orlando, but I think there has to be a lot of sets where it's Allen and 4 of the shooters or Mobley and 4 of the shooters just to see. And I would go deeper. I want to see some Marcus Morris run. I want to see like a lot of Niang, Okoro, those guys who I think that's going to be their benefit. There was my friend sent me a tweet earlier where someone said they were watching clips from last year, and one of the lineups was like Garland, Chetty, I think Dean, not even Dean Wade. It was. I'm going to go read it back quick. I don't have to go back too far because the lineup was ridiculous compared to what they could play this year. And it made me think about it again. It was Rubio, Garland, Danny Green, Chetty, and Mobley in the first quarter of game 3.
Yeah.
That's a horrible lineup, bro. That's just terrible.
Yeah, not good.
That's brutal.
So that you look at the Cavs lineup, if they're playing a bench lineup like that, you could say Garland, Mobley, and then it's LeVert, Okoro, and Marcus Morris or Strus or something like that. It's just that those are where the Cavs are different from last year. That could be where they make up the difference for sure.
Okay. Fair enough.
Head into the Western Conference.
Let's go to the West.
Yes. So here we are. I know what Steve's answer is going to be here.
How do you know?
Well, I don't know. You do have a future riding on this, the number 1 seed in the West. So you're looking good there. Your heart and your mind are gonna. My
80-1 preseason exact finals matchup future. They're both the 1 seed. So you know what? They did their part in the regular season. We'll take that on an 80-1. We'll see if both 1 seeds get there.
What do you think?
I don't think this is the Western Conference Finals.
Okay, I don't either.
I don't either.
All right.
Segment
over. Do we all have the Nuggets? Do we all have the Nuggets in the conference?
I do have the Nuggets.
I'm kind of on the fence with the Nuggets. I am. I think, and hear me out here. I think the Nuggets are a fantastic team, right?
Yeah, they're pretty good.
I think they're a fantastic team. They're defending champs, right? They are probably the odds-on favorites to win the West because of, everything they've done last year, what they've done this year, despite the Thunder being the 1 seed. The Denver Nuggets could either play a fully healthy Pelicans team in the first round, which I think might take a couple games off them, or a Lakers team, which we know the Lakers and the Nuggets and their history, and who would want to play LeBron James and Anthony Davis in the playoffs? Nobody would. And if they get by that, which they probably can, they play either Minnesota or Phoenix, which I look at that, right? Minnesota and Phoenix. And I know the West is a war. Any of these teams are good. But if I'm thinking of a couple teams that probably match up against the Nuggets for completely different reasons in a good way, I look at Minnesota and Phoenix. I think either whoever wins that series between the Timberwolves or the Suns, I think will give the Nuggets a good second round. And that's coming up, like I said, in the East. The 1 and 2 seeds aren't rewarded. The West, you can make that case times 10. Like you're almost punished for being a 1 or 2 seed in the Western Conference. So I look at the Nuggets road, and I do think it's very difficult. Now, I think they'll be favored in any series they play because, like I said, they're the favorites to win the West, the defending champs, and they have the MVP on their roster. Who's been,
not our MVP.
Probably been the best basketball player of the past, 4 or 5 years in Nikola Jokic. But I look at their road, and I think the road's tough. And not only that, when you're the defending champ, you got a target on your back. You have a target here. You don't think the Lakers want revenge, right? You don't think Phoenix wants revenge if they play them in the second round? And then Minnesota is out to prove themselves more than anyone. And they're the team that has the size that can kind of match with Denver a little bit. So I think the Nuggets have a tough road. And then Oklahoma City, I mean, same deal. We're talking about a team that also probably has a brutal road. But when we look at the Oklahoma City Thunder, and I want to give them credit for being the 1 seed, I'll give myself a little pat on the back for saying that this was going to be a team that kind of break out this year. And as much as I would love OKC and Boston to get my 80-1 future, OKC's playing either the Pelicans, Lakers, the Warriors, or the Kings. The Kings, I think they'll handle. The Warriors would be a very interesting series. I think they won't even be favored if it's the Lakers. And I could see the Pelicans giving them a tough series too. And if you get by that, you're playing either the Los Angeles Clippers, who, I know we talk about James Harden, but in terms of just star power, and I know Kawhi is kind of, questionable right now with injury, they're not going to be an easy out against anyone. Or you play the Dallas Mavericks, who've been the hottest team in the NBA in the past 3 weeks. I don't think you could guarantee a 1-2 in the Western Conference Finals. I don't think you can look at it and be like, yeah, they're the top 2 seeds. They're just going to go through. I think this is kind of crazy to say, but if the Lakers get in the Pelicans, if the Lakers and Pelicans, that's who I would have is my 7-8, Lakers-Pelicans. If that is the 1 through 8 seeds in the Western Conference, I think you could make the case for any of those 8 teams to get to the Western Conference Finals. I don't think that's crazy. I think that's how good the West has been this year. I think that's how stacked it's been. And I also think that's kind of how so much is matchup dependent on this. And I feel like both the Nuggets side and the Thunder side got teams that match up well against them. And that's where I'm like, I can't write either of them into the finals right now. I think if we're going to see chaos, it's going to be in the West.
I agree with that. The West is, as we've touched on almost all year, and we touched on it today too. Like the West is so much deeper than the East, and that brings a sense of unpredictability. The one thing I don't like seeing from our favorite discourse on ESPN and everything else about the Thunder being like one of the weakest 1 seeds ever, that's crazy to me.
Crazy. They're just young.
They're just young, and the conference is good. Like it's not, if the conference wasn't as good, they'd be a 65-win team because they're fucking good.
You know what drives me nuts about that? You know what drives me nuts about that? Those are the same guys that are hyping up SGA's like the best player they've ever seen.
Yeah, right.
And then they call the team the weakest team. And then they have the audacity, right, to talk about how good Chet Holmgren's been and how he was right with Wemby all year long in terms of rookie there. And now they're like, oh, he's a nobody. What do you mean?
Yeah.
Be consistent. Like if you're going to praise OKC all year long, you're going to praise SGA, Chet Holmgren, and Jalen Williams. Well-deserved praise too, might I add. What are you doing when you get to the playoffs and be like, oh, they're the weakest 1 seed? What are we doing here? Just say it what it is. They're young and they're inexperienced, and that's why I'm worried about them. And the West is stacked. That's all it is. Don't say they're a weak 1 seed. They got, 58 wins in this West?
Yeah.
In this Western Conference, that team got the 1 seed. You're going to call them the weakest 1 seed, but you're also going to say it's one of the strongest conferences we ever had. That doesn't add up.
No, doesn't make any sense.
I'm sorry. I got to rant about this because people are so inconsistent.
No,
it drives me nuts.
It is insane, and that's why I brought it up, because it's disrespectful to how good this Thunder team is. That being said, I do have the Nuggets in the Western Conference Finals. I'm not going to put the Thunder in there. I think that draw, it is a tough matchup, the Wolves or the Suns. I do think the Suns would be a tougher matchup.
Yeah.
the Clippers or Mavs for the Thunder is worst case scenario for a potential 4-5. And that's not even talking about facing the Lakers or the Warriors potentially in the first round for the Thunder.
Crazy. Like, you get rewarded. Oh, you're playing LeBron or Steph Curry.
Like
what?
That's a tough ask. And the Warriors and the Thunder, the Warriors and Lakers played the Thunder well this year too in their matchup. So yeah, I don't see it. What about are we ready to go here, Donnie? Do you have any other thoughts?
No, I think you guys said it. I did want to bring up the Thunder being the weakest 1 seed thing. It's just like how Gilbert Arenas said that Jokic was the worst MVP in the last 40 years. It's literally just things that don't make sense, bro. So that's what I chalk that up to. Yeah. And then something I saw today, which I think it's disrespectful to both teams. Like I never would have made the comparison, and I don't even like having my opinion on it, but I do think that the Russ, Harden, and KD Thunder team that made it to the finals is better than this group. But like the fact that I even see that on a daily basis, like which Thunder team was better? Right. It's like they're fucking different, bro. This team is the 1 seed right now and has a chance to do something great. Like why can't it just be that? And yeah, I think it's crazy. I do, I also don't hate what Steve was saying about the Nuggets not having the easiest path to the Western Conference Finals. I think the Nuggets do make it there, but I mean, if it's Lakers Nuggets in the first round, I think that'll be interesting.
Yeah, it will be. It will be. We'll know that more after tonight, at least, to see what that could be for the Nuggets. But let's get into the rest of the series and make our finals picks before that game tips off in about, I think they'll tip off right on time.
Yeah, I think it's 7:40. I think 7:40 is going to be tipped.
Okay, cool. So we got about 25 minutes till tip off. Let's go Timberwolves Suns to start. We talked about it a little bit this series. You want to start, Steve?
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of interesting, right? Because we have the Suns in the offseason that was kind of everyone's darling, right? They got Bradley Beal. They finally added like depth to their bench, which was their biggest issue from last year. And it's just star power everywhere you look, right? Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, Grayson Allen's had a fantastic season and he got paid. Yusuf Nurkic, which, by the way, I don't know if you guys remember, but I said he might have been a better fit in this team than DeAndre Ayton. He had a great role for him, right? Just did what he needed to do. And this Suns team, I think at their peak, they can beat anyone, but we've also seen them be kind of just have games where they disappear. I mean, there was a game very recently where they were down, 35-4 to the Clippers. And then we look at the Timberwolves. What we keep saying, all the wheels are going to fall off. They're going to come back down there. If they're going to come back down there. And they didn't. And they really didn't. And they're playing their style of basketball. Naz Reid has been phenomenal this year. Anthony Edwards has been unbelievable and is starting to take that step to be the guy. And I do want to see it in a playoff series, but he's looking like he's going to be the guy, and he's going to be the guy they run through the offense through in this playoff series. Rudy Gobert was fantastic in the regular season, but I don't think that's a surprise to anyone. That's kind of what he's been. Timberwolves had a lot more to prove, I think, of guys stepping up in the playoffs, right, when it comes to Ant-Man, Towns, and Gobert. And they play fantastic defense, which is kind of going to be the perfect formula to beat the Phoenix Suns. The one thing I say when it comes to the playoffs is I think you have to really rely on star power at the end of the day, right? It's the superstars just kind of step up. They really do. And we haven't seen it yet to the degree, like for Anthony Edwards, to the degree what we have with Devin Booker and Kevin Durant. So with that being said, I think the Timberwolves are a great matchup. I think it's probably going to go 7 games. I think this is going to be, in my mind, I think this is the best first round series. I think it's going to be back and forth all 7 games. I got to give the nod to Phoenix here, though. I got to give the nod because you look at their superstars, a lot more experience in the playoffs. They've gotten a lot further. Anthony Edwards is still young, and his time can come, but he's also, his second and third best options are guys who really haven't shown it in the postseason. And who are you going to go after that, right? McDaniels, Naz Reid. I mean, sure, but you look at Phoenix, you got Kevin Durant, you got Devin Booker, you got Bradley Beal. Grayson Allen has had runs in the postseason. And they have a decent bench now, finally, the guys that can help them. I'm going to go Phoenix here. I think this is going to be a great, great, great series. I would not be surprised if Minnesota won it just because they've basically proved me wrong all year long. Every time I doubt Minnesota, they just keep winning. And you know what? I got to give Minnesota credit too. They did end up losing in Denver, but that last game, I don't know if you guys watched it. The last game they played Denver was basically if they won that, they probably could have been the 1 seed, right? You're playing in Denver. They were with them the whole game until about 5 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. On the road in a must-win situation, that's impressive for a team like Minnesota in my eyes. But I'm giving Phoenix the edge here. Just a little more star power, a little more experience.
It's crazy because I feel pretty similar to that. And I don't know why, because for a really long time, the Minnesota Timberwolves scared me the most as someone who I assumed the Celtics were getting to the finals. And I thought for a while there that the Timberwolves could do it too. And I think if they make it past the series, they still have a shot at it. But
absolutely,
when I first saw that this was going to be the series, all I could think of was those 2 games that Phoenix won against Denver last year. And granted, they lost 4-2. But what happened in those 2 series were backs were against the wall, and Kevin Durant and Devin Booker went fucking insane.
Nuts.
And that's what both of them are able to do. And like you said, it's crazy because it's going to be so cool to watch if we get games where Ant outplays Booker, but there's never going to be a game where he outplays Booker, Beal, and Durant. It's just it's just not possible. And I know a big part of the reason I like the T-Wolves is because they have some guys who are great at defense on the wings, and they have guys that they can throw at Durant. But it might come a time where it doesn't matter if Book and KD have games like they did in games 3 and 4 last year against Denver in the first rounds.
And we just got to be honest about it. We have to. Do you trust Rudy Gobert in a playoff series?
No.
Right? Even with as great of a defensive team as they have. Yeah.
Do you trust Towns? I don't
well,
trust Towns.
I definitely that's what not even considering him defensively because they're going to have.
Well, no, I'm saying just in a playoff game.
Even I mean, he could go 4 for 16 game 1. That's you could see that from Towns too. But
with 3 rebounds,
and those are exactly
7-footer with 3 rebounds.
And so I love Ant. I love the Wolves squad that they have around him. It's not only it's not only Gobert defensively that helps them out. It's McDaniels. It's the whole team. One of my favorite 2K players, Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Those kinds of guys, defensively really shape. That's what shapes this identity. But as you said, when it comes to Durant and Booker, what we saw them do last year, and this team feels more complete. And we mentioned it a lot of times. They were under 500 after Christmas Day. They've been a completely different team in the new year. And I would say one of the best teams in the West, even if they've still been inconsistent. I'm just going to pick them in at least 1 series. I don't think that they can lose this one. I think it's a tough draw for the Timberwolves. I think they put up some fight, but I think the Suns go on.
And let's also not forget, Anthony Edwards is 22 years old. He's still very inexperienced himself. And it feels like when we talk about Anthony Edwards, because he's been a star, that he's been in the league for 7-8 years, right? He doesn't really have that much experience under his belt. He's 22. And this is a daunting task going up to just superstars in Kevin Durant and Devin Booker.
Yeah. And I just want to correct myself there. I think I said the first round, but that was the second round that the Suns played the Nuggets last year. But yeah, I did not have all 3 of us taking the fucking Suns here. This is it's crazy to think about with how good the T-Wolves are, and I think how big of a threat they can be to any team. But I don't know, maybe just the way the Suns ended the season. It's all in our head. But I think it is just the Booker and Durant effect at the end of the day.
Yeah, I could. If there's anybody who I think is going to threaten the Nuggets in that second round, I think it would be the Suns, not the Wolves. I think the Suns could really give them a tough series with their scoring this time around.
I think both would give a good series, though. I don't think the Nuggets cruise through either.
That's fair. I don't trust Gobert. It's really still just the Gobert hold up for me against Jokic.
That's fair. I completely understand. I don't know. I feel like the T-Wolves would at least give them a good series.
Yeah, well, we're going to learn a lot. That's when I said this to Steve before you got jumped on, Dunny, that I'm most excited for this series from a pure intrigue standpoint because I don't know what to expect, like from either of these teams. You could tell me anything about this series, and I would believe it because I don't know what to expect from this Timberwolves team or this newly put together Suns team with Beal in a playoff spot too, and Bradley Beal in the playoffs too. Like we haven't seen a lot of Bradley Beal in the playoffs recently, so it's going to be interesting.
That's
But he's
like
had some great performance.
2017, John
And
Wall
he
and
was
Beal against the Celtics.
and he was amazing. Like he was willing the Wizards in that playoff. So I'm interested to see him there. We saved the best for last for Steve. The Clippers and the Mavericks. What do you think, Steve?
I'll tell you what. I mean, this was kind of been. I think the first playoff series was kind of locked in because the Clippers and Mavs was either going to be 4 or 5 seed. So they knew they were playing each other for a week. The Mavs kind of benched everybody. Clippers kind of did the same. This is round 3, man. This is round 3 and Luka's playoff career, and Mavs are coming. That's all I gotta say. Luka gave 6 games the first time he played a much better Clippers team. We're talking in the bubble, a much better Clippers team. Luka took him to 6 games. He had obviously the buzzer beater. He had his moments. And then the next season, 7 games. People forget in that 7-game series that Dorian Finney-Smith and Boban Marjanovic were starters for the Mavs in a few of those games against the Clippers. And I love Boban. He got the people free chicken. I love Boban. He's a man of the people. I'll never say a bad word about Boban. All I'm saying is Mavs have some slight upgrades. All right, they've had some slight upgrades since they've seen the Clippers last in the playoffs. And I could talk about Luka as much as anyone, but we've talked about Luka enough. Well, I've made my MVP case. I've made my case of how he's the best offensive player. I've made my case of how his defense has improved drastically this year. And I made my case of how that, the lazy argument, we got to see him win. It's like, well, just put decent players around him and you'll see it win. And all of a sudden the Mavs 16-2 in their last 18. They've been the hottest team basically since the All-Star break. I can talk about Luka all I want. But the fact of the matter, I'm not going to talk about Luka because we know what Luka's going to do. Luka's going to have his 40, 10, and 10 games. Like, he's just going to do that in the playoffs. He's going to put up video game type numbers. He's going to play 45 of the 48 minutes. But there's some other guys in this Mavs team that is, I think, the real difference from the Mavs at the beginning of the season to now. First off, and most importantly, after Luka, of course, Kyrie Irving's healthy, and he's playing like a 100% prime Kyrie Irving. He's been phenomenal, and it's hard.
He stopped saying the off-court things too.
Exactly.
He's been pretty clean in that.
The off-court distractions are gone. He's loving his life in Dallas right now. Him and Luka are getting along. They're best buds on and off the court right now. And the biggest thing when I watch Kyrie and Luka this year as opposed to last year is they just kind of know how to play with each other this year, right? You have an off season playing together.
It's night and day, bro, compared to last year.
It's night and day. They just kind of know. One knows, all right, this is going to be his time to go through the offense. I'll kind of stand off the side a little bit. Or it's like we're going to work together here. Vice versa, it does not matter. You can also, when you have a guy like Kyrie, if Luka needs a little rest or if he gets in foul trouble like he can at the start of games, you can just let Kyrie take over.
Yep.
When Luka has been out this year, Kyrie's averaging over 30 points and over 7 assists a game. I mean, he's been phenomenal. But the biggest thing with Kyrie is when I watch him is that Kyrie knows his role in the Mavericks offense. And he knows what to do kind of at all times. And I love that because there's no better backcourt in the NBA right now. I can argue there's no better duo. I know the Jays, Dunny. All respect to the Jays. I can argue there's no better duo right now than Kyrie and Luka because Kyrie could be a number 1 on pretty much, I don't know, like 20 teams in the league right now, the way he's been playing. Like, that's how good Kyrie's been. But Luka's been so dominant, it's kind of overshadowing that. But if you just focused on Kyrie during the games, you would be like, this looks like Kyrie on the Cavs.
Yep.
Like, this is what he looks like. Plus, his outside shooting's been phenomenal this year. He's an absolute wizard, finishing down low, which we all knew that. but Kyrie's happy number one and healthy number two. And those are the biggest things for Kyrie coming into a playoff series. Happy and healthy 1 and 2. And that's what Kyrie is. Kobe White, Ayo Dosunmu. I love that he said Kobe White, Ayo Dosunmu instead of DeMar DeRozan, JBC. I absolutely love that. But number 2, and this is the other reason why I think that I really like the Mavs' chances this playoffs. They addressed what they needed to at the deadline. They got size.
Yep.
PJ Washington and Daniel Gafford. PJ's been a little streaky offensively this year. His shot's been inconsistent. He had some moments. He's had some bad games. Does not matter. I don't really care. Make your open threes, sure, whatever. Their defense has completely changed the culture of this Mavs team to where I think they were the number 3 rated defensive team since the trade deadline. PJ Washington will guard the best player every single game they go up against. So if we face a healthy Kawhi Leonard, if he is going to play, I know Kawhi's kind of been, it's kind of like questionable right now if he's going to go, if he's full go, if he's even going to play in the first game. We don't really know yet. It's classic Kawhi, right? With an injury, you never kind of really know until 5 minutes before the game. But if he plays, PJ Washington's on him. If he doesn't play, PJ Washington's on Paul George. And PJ Washington is such a good defender on whoever he's matched up against for the Mavs since they acquired him. And I also, kind of don't take away from his offensive struggles, because when you're focused on defense so much and you're guarding the best player, your offensive game's gonna lack a little bit. And he didn't need to do that in Charlotte because they didn't play defense. They didn't need to put him on anyone. But PJ has helped them. And then Daniel Gafford has been a godsend for this Mavs team. The defense down low. He's only 6'10", but he plays like he's 7'2". He's an absolute beast on the boards. Probably, and I know this is kind of just an underrated thing because they're all giants, but he's one of the best guys at boxing out in the NBA.
Yeah.
Daniel Gafford getting to his spot, just getting his body in the way and boxing out, one of the best. And on the offensive side, he just knows his role. Just go down low. Luka and Kyrie are going to find you. He made 33 straight field goals earlier this year. I think he made 22 on his other streak. He's just been that good, and he doesn't really need to do anything besides just dunk and get those contact layups. But it's the defense that's really helped. And I look at down low. That's kind of where you look at the Clippers and where you can take advantage of them, right? I'm not too worried about Zubac. I'll be completely honest with you, right? I'm not too worried about Plumlee. The Clippers to me have 2 really, really good wing players in Kawhi and Paul George. But Kawhi, like I said, I don't really know what's going on with his injury. We know James Harden in the playoffs. I'm sure he'll have his game, and then he'll have other games where he just kind of throws it away. Love Westbrook, but I don't think he's going to start. I think he comes off the bench again. And I just look at what the Mavs can match up defensively. I just think it's going to make it so much easier for Luka and Kyrie offensively, because I don't think they're going to have to worry too much on defense, right? You're going to have to guard Harden. I'm assuming Luka's going to be on Harden for most of the game. And then probably Kyrie on Terrence Mann or whoever they play. Could be Coffee. I don't know who they play at the other guard position. But I think PJ is going to be that X factor where he can guard a guy like Paul George, where he can guard a guy like Kawhi Leonard, which I think will really help the Mavs in this series. This is the most talented team by far Luka has had going into the playoffs. Also by far the most talented team he's had facing the Clippers. And he almost willed them to beat the Clippers the second time they played. He in a series, the first time they faced off, when people thought the Clippers were probably going to sweep them, blow them out, Luka stole 2 games just based on what he can do. And like I said, I didn't want to talk about Luka, but he's that type of player who could just steal a game, just take over a game. I also think Kyrie's that kind of guy too. Oh, and definitely. If you watch the Mavs in the second half of this year, because I've been watching every single game, Luka scores 25 before halftime. He's done it 10 times this year. But the guy who usually is the one who scores the most points in the second half for the Mavs, or the guy who usually scores the most in the fourth quarter or takes a lot of the big shots, no, Luka has Fisher, but it's Kyrie Irving.
Yeah.
And that's the big key, I think, to the Mavs, not only winning this series, but winning multiple series in the playoffs, is Kyrie happy and healthy, because I can't really count more than 2 or 3 guys I'd rather have the ball in their hands in the fourth quarter than Kyrie Irving.
No, you can't do that. I mean, Kawhi might be one of those guys, but when you look at the other two guys with them, those are two guys you don't want the ball in their hands. Like if we're just talking about it like that, like as much as Paul George he's had great playoff performances, we know we've talked at length about James Harden in the playoffs and everything else, and Kyrie definitely one of the most clutch players we've ever seen in the game, and that is a big difference. That's the biggest thing for me with this Mavs team is that with Luka, like when picking the upsets the last couple years, you're asking Luka to do so much, but you know he can do so much. You were talking about it earlier with the Durant and Booker type performances. Those two guys can do this in this series, 100%. The Clippers guys can do it too. Don't get me wrong. Yeah, it will happen. So, what do you think, Dunny?
Yeah, so Steve brought up a great point with Kyrie there, and Jake, you should know better than anyone with this guy hitting the shot for your beloved Cavaliers. And the craziest thing is I know we talked about it earlier. Kyrie hadn't played a string of consecutive games since 2017 with the Cavs, as he had this year with the Mavericks, and I don't think he's been. Obviously he was great. He was great with the Celtics when he went there after the Cavs for a short period of time, but we know how that ended. And then in Brooklyn, I watched him score 50 in his Brooklyn debut in the Barclays Center, and he had some moments there, but he's not what he is now with the Mavs. I truly don't think we've seen this version of Kyrie since 2017 on the Cavaliers, and it's the consecutive games, it's the style of play, and it's just – and I was kind of joking when I mentioned it before, but in all seriousness, dude, it's the bullshit. He's dropped it. I don't know if he's just happy playing with Luka. I don't know if he's happy in Texas or what it is, or if he just had an epiphany or coming to life moment where he's like, "Hey, man, we have a great opportunity here. I'm still that fucking good at basketball." And I think that's just what we've seen from Kyrie. And truthfully, even if Kawhi plays, I have no idea how the Mavericks lose this series. It's kind of similar, I think, with the Magic and the Cavs, like just vibes-wise. Like just a few weeks ago, Ty Lue and Paul George were questioning what the Clippers' identity was.
Yeah.
And here are the Mavericks who, have clearly found their identity, and they've been one of the hottest teams in the NBA in the second half of the year. And then you have two guys who have this shot-making ability and, like Steve mentioned, can play alongside each other so well and have just seemingly figured it out. Especially if Kawhi Leonard doesn't play, I just cannot see the Mavericks losing this series. Obviously, if Kawhi plays and he's incredibly healthy and the rest, helped him, obviously that's a big boost for the Clippers, but I don't know. I don't see. I think this, has every chance to be a competitive series if Kawhi plays, but I don't see the Mavs losing it.
Yeah, I'm also picking the Mavs. It's a great way you just described, the same as the Magic and Cavs series, because this Clippers team also peaked like January, February when they went on their biggest run, and then they have not been the same team the second half or after the All-Star break and everything else. So I don't know who the real Clippers are either. That's a great point. We know who this Mavs team is at this point, though. Since the trade deadline and bringing in the new guys. So I do think it's the Mavs. Let's get to our finals picks. We got 4 minutes till tip off. We have to make them before these games tip off. I'll go first. I'll be the brave one to give my first pick. I've been saying it all year, but I'm keeping it, but going against it. I am picking the Denver Nuggets to face the Boston Celtics in the NBA Finals, and I am picking the Boston Celtics to win the NBA Finals.
You switched from the start.
I just think it's going to be. I think they'll have a problem with Jokic. But if Porzingis is healthy and if Drew Holiday is healthy, it's just, especially Drew. If Drew's healthy, I think it's a lot to ask in that series. I think Drew will do a great job against Murray, and Jokic will have crazy stat lines, but he can't outscore three of those guys. He can't outscore Porzingis and Tatum and Brown for a whole series. So that's what I've come down to. I would feel stupid picking against the Celtics team. They feel like a team of destiny at this point. So I'm going Celtics over Nuggets. But keeping my finals matchup, I was tempted to go and take out the Nuggets, put the Suns in, do something spicy, whatever, but I'm just going to hold firm with it.
All right, Tony.
I think I'm going Celtics Mavs.
Oh,
there we go.
This guy. Oh
And
no.
I feel like that might be what Steve is also doing. But even before this show, but this show really just thinking about it and then just talking about the Mavs right there. I think they're in a prime spot to do it. I also think that the game, what was that? Probably a month and a half ago now when Kyrie hit the game winner against Denver. I saw that it was possible. Like that was like a point in the season where to me and maybe to other basketball fans, Denver looked mortal. Like I think up until that point, it was like no, like because the Mavs hadn't even really hit that surge completely at that point yet. That kind of kickstarted it a little bit. And since then, the Mavs have not looked back, and that kind of made Denver look mortal to me. And I think we have Celtics, Mavericks, and Luka gets to the finals like Tatum did a few years ago and comes up short to the Boston Celtics. I think he'll get back. He'll get his hardware, but it's Boston's turn this year.
Don't pulling at my heartstrings there, man. Regular season.
If that's true, though, that means you're coming to TD Garden.
That means
with
I
me
gotta go
for
to
a finals game,
man. I know at that point I just gotta ignore the bank account that
yeah.
month. It's just like it doesn't matter.
It's NBA finals.
Yeah, it's an early birthday and Christmas present, Mom and Dad. What do you mean? I had Celtics over Suns as my preseason pick, which right now, I don't hate that because, like I said, I think there's a lot of paths for the Suns to get there. I have the 81 future for Celtics over Thunder, and I don't think my champ's changing. I think Boston has been the best team all year long. I think I've said it all the time. Stevie Boston's in full swing. Their starting five, I don't think anyone can really match with their starting five. And like I said, they have a little bit of a depth too, and all you really need is an 8-man rotation in the playoffs, and Boston has the best 1 through 8. Probably by far of any NBA team. Donnie and I have just been on the same page for the past 2 weeks, man. It's hard for me not to pick the Mavs to go to the finals just based on the stretch they've been on, based on how they've looked in the second half of the season. I would just feel wrong not picking them to at least get there with the way they've been playing basketball. Like Donnie said, I mean, they showed they can beat the Nuggets. I know Kyrie had the game winner there, but they were up 12 and they blew a 12-point lead, but they still won. And that's important to me that, you can, blow a lead against a team as good as the Nuggets in the fourth quarter, but still come away with the victory. I loved OKC coming into this year. I think they're a little young. I'm gonna take the Celtics over the Mavs in 6, probably. I hope it goes the distance, and I would love to steal one from Donnie. Trust me, I would absolutely love it. But I've said it from the start of the year. The Celtics have been the best team in the NBA when healthy, and even when a guy is out or 2 guys are out, they find guys who just come in and just fill the hole. Celtics in 6, break my heart. I'll watch Luka put up 40 in the Garden in a loss, but yeah, I'm sticking with the Celtics, Stevie Boston, taking the Celtics to just rip my heart out in the NBA Finals. But you know what? If I can just get the Mavs there, I'm happy. I really am, because the way they came from, they didn't even make the playoffs last year, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
And then they kind of the first half of the season dealing with a lot of injuries, kind of struggled a little bit consistency wise. The future's bright because Luka might be 25. But PJ Washington and Daniel Gafford, they're young too at 26. Like, these guys are going to be, if the Mavs are smart, they're going to have this core for at least a few more years. But this is the Celtics here, man. They're just they're too good. They're too good. They shoot the 3 better than anyone. They defend better than anyone. Too good.
Have you guys caught any of how Missoula is preparing them to start the week, because they have the long break off here before the playoffs? So apparently the Celtics organization told media to get there for post practice media at 10:30 a.m. The Celtics were still in the gym at noon practicing. They went they went an additional 2 hours after practice today, and Missoula is simulating crowd noise and has speakers playing the defense chant over and over in their practice arena.
They ain't messing around, Donnie. They're not messing around.
And then Wednesdays are usually on the calendar all year are days off. and the Celtics just added a practice for tomorrow, Wednesday.
There you go.
Boy.
So Joe's got the fellas locked in.
Yeah.
Who do you, if we had to pick one team that was not the Celtics, Dunny, you don't have to do this. I guess I can keep it to Steve. I won't put that juju on you. Who would you say could do it? And then
Out of the East?
Yes.
Oh man. One team, Philly.
Yeah, I think so too.
Philly.
I think
they have a good path. Knicks without Randall, right?
Yep.
If they beat Miami, like if they lose to Miami and let's say they win and get the 8, then obviously they can't pick them because at Boston. They beat the Knicks without Randall. You're playing Milwaukee or Indiana.
Yeah.
And then it's just a 7-game series against the Celtics. I think Philly.
Yeah, I would say Philly. I think the Knicks are whoever. I think it would be whoever won that series because I think if the Knicks can get by Philly, I would love them against the Bucks or Pacers, and then you're there.
I just think Philly's probably a better matchup against the Celtics than the Knicks would be.
Yes. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Drew Holiday against Jalen Brunson. Good luck.
Yeah, and I really kind of just want the Cavs to lose so they don't have to play the Celtics in the second round. I don't want to see that for a series, bro.
Fair enough.
Ideally, if it was somebody from the. I mean, I think any of the teams from the West could do it. I think that we're in a good space there.
What would be your most surprising? Let's say just the 6 teams because we don't know the winners of the play-in yet.
Most surprising
1 through 6. Who would be most surprising to
make the finals?
Yeah.
Oh, the Timberwolves still.
Timberwolves?
Yeah. If the Wolves are in the finals, that's the craziest timeline. And I know that they've been it's no shame to them. But if we're talking about the Suns, the Clippers, the Mavericks, the Nuggets, the Thunder, the Timberwolves got to be.
Yeah. I don't hate that take.
I think the Suns could. The Suns. We might all look stupid by not picking the Suns. It could just be like.
I know. I should just stick with my gut with the preseason pick. I had Celtics Suns and Daniel Gafford making me believe in the Mavs.
But that'll do it, Dunny. You want to take us home? Where can we make all our picks for the playoffs?
Yeah, if you guys are locked into these games, which we know you are because you guys are basketball sickos like the rest of us, go over to WinStreaks app, download it if you don't have it. You can make up to 5 picks a day on the WinStreaks app, 100% free to play. Do the NBA through the playoffs. MLB is cooking. You still have over 100 games to play there for each team, obviously. A lot of games in the MLB. College basketball just ended, but college football and the NFL are right around the corner. As crazy as that sounds, NHL obviously going into playoff mode as well. So 100 players win cash prizes every week up to $2,000. Make your 5 picks, like I mentioned, and you accumulate points based off your wins. Again, no deposits ever, guys. Download the WinStreaks app and use our code HHH in the referral code spot when you do so. Thank you to WinStreaks. Thank you to Trainwreck Sports. That is another episode of Happy Hour Hoops. And guys, enjoy the play-in, enjoy the playoffs. Best time of year.
Yes, sir.